Six Gun Productions. New media, new rules.
This is Geek News Radio, broadcast 75, for Wednesday, December 12, 2018. A day ending in Y.
You're listening to Geek News Radio, episode 75. I'm Dave in Birmingham.
I'm Mike in Scaries.
And I'm Fab in Hamburg, and I just remembered I should probably turn my phone off.
Oh,
Otherwise,
Fab, it's been a comedy of errors so far.
Oh god, this whole trying to record this podcast started with me not having audio out.
Yeah, so we were just sat around in Discord waiting for Fab to talk.
Because I did
already hear Nicholas, fan of the podcast, going, you're getting rusty.
Yeah, I am. I don't know. I am. It's the US trip or something. I don't know. So I did the thing that Dan recommended. I got one of these balanced jack cables, so you guys have better audio.
Yeah.
But I plugged it in the wrong jack plug, and this mixer has on top has 6, 10, 14.
That's too many plugs, Fab. Why do you have so many plugs?
No, actually, it's 15.
It's too many plugs.
It's this very small mixer, but even on a small mixer, you can plug it in the wrong hole, and then anyway.
And then we're deaf.
Let's not go down that route. Anyway, how are you guys? How's it going?
I am very well.
But ready for the weekend.
Oh, I was ready for the weekend on Sunday evening. I was like, I'm not fucking ready for this shit show.
I am. I know how you feel. I had a day today. I wanted to basically. I was in the home office, right? And something happened.
In the UK, and you didn't say hello to me. Oh. Fixing Brexit for us, thank you.
No, I was working from home. Sorry about the Brexit thing. I have other problems, and then something happened. I just wanted to smash somebody's face into concrete.
Good thing you weren't in the office then.
See, this is what I think. At first, I think it's so annoying that I'm not there to shout at people. On the other hand, I'm like, oh, it's probably good. I'm not murdering anybody. But as we speak, I only have 12 days left. 12 days.
Whoa.
And it's Magic streaming Fab in his pajamas forever.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my god. I'm
But
so
it's it's like the Hugh Hefner version of the pajamas, though, isn't it? You'll be there with your pipe and
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
the captain's hat.
I'm wearing one right now. The only thing that is going downhill is that today they announced they're gonna pull all the porn off Tumblr. So I saw that. Which is weird because that's like the only thing Tumblr really exists for. Yeah, I think they're dead now.
As far as I can tell. Yeah, it's weird.
What is Tumblr's forte actually as a mechanic? Like, what's the technological?
I don't know. People. No. It was like it was at the time when blogging was like really hard to do. And you basically had to install WordPress. It was just this thing like you could use that was easy to do if you didn't want to have something as hideously looking as LiveJournal.
Yeah, and you wanted to do longer posts than Twitter.
Yeah, and it was it was old school Medium, I guess.
It was, and people sort of, it's quite popular to sort of curate sort of galleries of stuff.
Oh yes, images.
Like
that's you're right. Yeah.
There's it's going to be kind of, well, I mean, if Twitter, so it's not going to be directly affecting the things I care about, but there are some pretty good Tumblrs about just like cool screenshots from stuff.
Yeah, or designers were using it, like,
Yeah, there was one for like really cool sci-fi user interfaces, which was really good. And if Tumblr goes away, which it might do now, because I imagine traffic's going to drop.
To like 2%. See, I was using it actually. There were actually there were some really, like, it sounds weird to say this, you'll laugh at me, but there were like some really stylish like porn Tumblrs. Like they were like really, it's more like not really like hardcore porn, more like GIFs, and they were more like, probably from Hollywood movies or something, and they were like actually quite stylish and just kind of cool, and you just don't get that anywhere else. You just get like gaudy, very gaudy porn. I'm gonna miss porn Tumblr.
Do you mean like pinup style stuff?
Yeah, but let's just like GIFs, like, I don't know. Maybe that might have been like some of them were like actually from I guess they were from hardcore porn, but they weren't the hardcore scenes, just like girls in lingerie and stuff like that, Anyway, let's not get into that.
R.I.P. Tumblr.
You've researched that well, I can hear.
I did, yes. And I was looking forward to researching it much more when I was working from home, and now it's gone. It's right. Really unfortuitous timing.
Maybe they were like, actually, Fab's gonna break the bandwidth, so, okay.
Somebody on Twitter said that they're gonna save on a server farm or two with this move. I guess it's probably true. Definitely. Anyway, I'm gonna start. Since we are at the EU Hefner, since you brought that up, I'm sitting here in my captain set, and I'm actually, I have to admit, I'm actually podcasting in my pajamas. Because I was working all day from home. I didn't leave the house. I was working so much I couldn't even prepare food. I just ordered a pizza in, right? And then in the evening I realized, hey, why am I completely dressed like in a shirt, like with jeans? What the hell? And then I thought,
this is a big heel turn from last episode. You said that you were gonna like wear a fucking waistcoat for working from home, and I like immediately day minus 15, and you're already in pajamas.
To be fair, I was saying a Starfleet uniform, and Starfleet uniform to pajama is not a big jump.
Actually, that's pretty adjacent, isn't it? Really?
Anyway, I'm drinking a nice red wine to go with my EU Hefner look.
Oh, that's fantastic, because Fab, I also have a premium mid-shelf Argentinian Malbec.
Oh, you getting wasted tonight, son.
It is a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Embrace the Tuesday.
It's a day ending in Y.
Well, it seems like we're on a wavelength here, because I'm sitting here with an O'Hara's double IPA.
Oh.
7.5, boys.
That's basically wine.
That is basically wine.
Yeah, it is. So, and it's really nice. Oh, it's so good.
Sounds really good. Gotta say, yeah.
Rhode Island. Yep.
It's nice to be back together again. Have you on the show? I've missed you. We have to, so people can picture it. Mike's not wearing his mustache anymore. You were doing Movember, right?
I did Movember, and it was sort of a personal challenge because people may not know that I've actually never had a beard or any facial hair. In this day and age, it's probably a bit meh, but for me, it was a bit of a personal challenge because I knew my wife was not like the biggest fan, but as I explained to her that, there's a lot of charities out there, and every month we have, the Red Cross and UNICEF and cancer research and stuff, like lots of good things that we have like regular payments to. But because one of my really good friends had a scare last year with basically, like testicular cancer, basically.
Oh, fuck.
And also other people that I've sort of in my circles that have other issues. I really wanted to dive into Movember for men's health, because I think it is a worthy cause, because we're not our own sort of best friends sometimes, us men. I think we walk around and maybe don't always take care of ourselves. And I think Movember is a very positive message about just looking out for your mates and making sure that they don't get taken over by.
It's actually really cool.
Or,
I mean, you might know that I used to do the, what I did in the last couple of years, I did the Gentleman's Ride. And
I remember that. Yeah.
That money also goes to the Movember Foundation. So it's kind of the same.
Exactly.
I got to say, it's a surprise that you didn't have a beard, because, you could grow one. It definitely looked good. There's quite a beard there.
That's what I realized, because some guys came up to me and they were like, you've only had this for a month,
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it's, and they were like, you can grow a beard, man. It's like
the Viking genes, dude.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great experience. I set myself a target of 500 euro that I wanted to raise, and I got 460. So I thought I'm really proud of that, actually. And there might trickle a few things might trickle in. Still,
I actually didn't. Usually, I always pitch in with something like that. I'm quite ashamed that I didn't. But
never too late, Fab. Never too late.
Well, I know I've imposed this thing on me because I'm not gonna have an income anymore from next year.
The thing is, like,
no, Dave will point out that I bought shitloads of Magic cards.
Yeah, I was just about to say, how much Magic the Gathering have?
Yeah, okay.
It's an investment, Fab. It's an investment.
Yes. Oh, I sold a card this week.
This is the new industry. You're investing
for like 17 euros.
I like it.
To a guy in Spain.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, but I totally get that, the collector's thing.
Anyway, I salute you, Mike. Great work. And the beard, so you asked people at the end what mustache you were going to get, and they voted for the worst ever.
I put it up for vote, and I found this page that had different styles, and then I basically put it up for vote. And it wasn't a surprise to me that, I got like, I don't know, 5 or 6 votes or something. But, it was like Gunslinger, do the Gunslinger. And then I did the Gunslinger, which looks a bit like James Hetfield actually did back in the day.
Yeah, or you actually, with the glasses, you do look a bit like Joachim. It's
Yeah, Joachim, I actually didn't compare it, but afterwards I was a bit like, yeah, I can see.
His is a bit more.
Slightly different take on it. Yeah,
it's a bit smaller and more trimmed.
Yeah. So,
I'm gonna put a picture in the show notes for everybody.
Thanks very much.
I did not do Movember because, as we all know, I've never had facial hair.
Well, once they come up with the neckbeard challenge, you can.
Well, yeah, then I'm literally set. Because I can do that really well. But I did donate to the cause.
Well, now I feel really bad.
Well, because Mike posted a photo of his amazing beard. I was like, well, that deserves money.
Yeah, that's true.
Stick it in there, David.
Yeah.
But listen, also to the guys and girls listening, I really appreciate every effort and you give what you can, and Fab, don't feel bad. There's always next time.
I'm gonna send you some Magic cards. Is that okay?
Oh yeah. Oh, awesome. Wouldn't know what to do with them, but yeah, I can probably sell it to a guy in Spain. Yeah.
Yeah, and then great. So, well, we should get into the show. So today we're just gonna talk about stuff, board games, obviously Warhammer. To talk about we have to get the Warhammer quota up. People been clamoring.
Oh yeah. There's been many complaints that we do not talk enough Warhammer,
including from you.
I tried to submit it as an issue in the configuration, so it didn't let me.
I fixed it. You can. It works now.
What do we want to talk about first?
So let's do whatever order we've got here. So let's talk about the Expanse board game. That sounded.
So I posted a photo of me playing this.
I didn't know you had that.
So I don't have it. It's friend of the show, Icarus, Ben Cotton.
Of course.
He had a sort of birthday weekend where we played a load of board games, drank far too much beer, and had a good old time. And on Sunday, we played the Expanse Board Game, which he'd described to me previously, and I wasn't tremendously interested in. But it sounded like it looked like a laugh, and we were a little bit hungover. So we did it, and it's actually really good. It is. It's quite an abstract. It's like a war game. It's a war game, but in the kind of board game sense where you don't have miniatures, you have cubes and little cardboard tokens, and you shuffle them around and do stuff.
So what time is it? Is it set? Is that
it is pre the ring appearing,
right?
The ring appearing. So Protogen's knocking around.
So it's like second book where all the space battles are as well. Yeah.
Yes. So the idea is it can go to like 4 players, and each player plays as a faction. So you can play as Earth, Mars, the OPA, and the Protogen Corporation, and then whoever's in last place controls the Roasted Nanty, which is kind of cool. So it means that everyone in theory could have a little go with the Roast Nanty.
So they're like the wild card, right? That kind of fits thematically.
The idea is, as in all good board games, you must acquire abstract points called control points, and that you can do that. But on your turn, so the board is sort of like split into regions. There's like the inner, the outer planets, and the belt. And you can sort of move ships between them, and it takes more moves to move them further and things like that. But on your turn, you'll spend control points. You start off with, I think, 10 or some amount of control points. You start off with some control points, and you spend them on your turn to buy action cards from there's this 5 action cards laid out, and they get refilled as you buy them.
Action cards. Holden transmits.
Yeah, it is. This is where the kind of like the theme is a bit loose, and the action cards have like names, or they're like named after characters, but the kind of things they do aren't necessarily that related to stuff. So there's one card which is like the bit. It's sort of like dropping an asteroid. I can't remember the name of the asteroid, but it's like you can basically drop an asteroid on Mars, and that removes influence tokens from Mars, which is kind of thematic. But then there's Miller. His card is kind of complicated because you can either like buy the card and do the thing on the card, or the card also has a number on it, which is like the number of action points you can use. So you can either do the effect or spend, say, the 4 points that are on the card to shuffle things around. So having fights in orbit, that costs action points. Moving ships around costs action points. Putting influence tokens on locations like bits on Earth, the Moon, Titan, Eros, all the kind of named places. You put influence tokens on those, and then those are going to be at sort of random points in the game. You'll score. So like whoever controls certain areas will get points, which will be their control points, which you can spend, but are ultimately victory points at the end. So you can spend action points from cards to do things like to put influence tokens on the board to make points at some point in the future. Miller's card is you take his card, you keep it in front of him, in front of you, and then you... Oh, God, what do you do? You can... Rather than
something
on your
chaotic, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit. Rather than on your turn buying an action card and using it for its ability, or buying it and using for its movement points, you can discard Miller, take a card,
don't discard Miller,
and do both. So you get to do the action and then also use the points. So it's really quite powerful. So there's some really good cards that are like do some powerful thing, like just destroy some ships, and also they have like 4 movement points, which is quite a lot. So you can just do both at the same time. But the kind of neat mechanic of buying these cards to influence the board is that if I take the card and I decide I want to use it for its action points, so I want to move my ships around or pop cubes down to say I'm like invading Earth, or like I'm influencing politics on Titan. If you do that, then other people get the option to use the card for its ability for free. So I say I want to move ships around, and then in an order that's defined with kind of complicated rules, you get to choose, do you want to use this card for free? And then you could do it as well. So there's lots of kind of thinking about like, well, this card is really good, but I don't want other people to get it, so it's quite nice. And it was really good. The different factions have very subtly different rules. They're all basically the same. So Mars has battleships, which are twice as good as normal spaceships. The Earth is better at influencing people, so they've got a giant cube that they can place on worth double the influence that a Martian cube is worth. The OPA are better at they can do the thing so when they influence people, they remove other people's influence as well. So I put a token on, and then I remove one of your tokens. So that's like a swing of 2 rather than just
blow it up,
yeah.
I guess.
And then the Protogen called Protogen, basically, at some point they get the ability to sort of just drop asteroids on people, which is apparently really unfair. We didn't play with that.
That's more of an OPA thing, actually.
No. Or do they like bomb them with stuff? Basically, the Protogen just sort of like get to obliterate things eventually.
Okay, they probably use the proto-molecule.
Yeah, some gubbin around that. And it's really quite fun. I won it, which helps.
Who are you playing?
I was playing as Mars.
Fucking Martians. I would have guessed that you played Mars and then won.
Yeah, I played the Martians. And it was really, really good. The annoying thing is that it's now I think it's to print. It was pretty small, and I don't think it got much buzz.
It was kickstarted, right?
Maybe it's published by WizKids, who are an actual board game company.
I know, aren't they they've got something to do with? They did BattleTech stuff, right?
I think so. Yeah,
and they were somehow connected to Wizards at some point. Didn't they do stuff?
Fairly large publisher, so they might well have done.
Yeah, I think they do they're token miniatures for the tokens. I think they do those.
Okay. So it got a small release, so I don't think I can buy it apart from buying it from a collector for loads of money, which is a shame. And it's quite a good not abstract. So there's genres of war games that are really complicated. They're called the Coin series. It stands for something. But they're basically really ridiculous simulations of real wars. And I have played one called Fire in the Lake, which is a tedious simulation of the Vietnam War. It took Ben and I about an hour to set up. And then
this sounds like that game that Char was playing.
Yeah, it's rules-wise way more complicated than the game, but in terms of the number of players, it's way more simple. We had 3 players, and our friend John won in 2 turns as the South Vietnamese because because it was so complicated. We had no idea what was good, and he just happened to do some things that meant that he got a victory condition. It's oh, okay, you've won in 20 minutes. Fuck.
Oh no.
Yeah, the Expanse one is a kind of more fun theme than the Vietnam War. I'm going to say that right now. And is more simple and more accessible, but it still kind of gives you the kind of nice abstract feel of that you're not necessarily dealing with little miniatures fighting on a landscape. You're dealing with sort of larger grand strategy doing stuff. Which is kind of fun.
It does sound a bit complicated, to be honest.
It is. If you're trying to explain it to someone who's not a board game person, it might not go tremendously. I would not. So if this was, if I knew someone who liked The Expanse but didn't like board games, I would not suggest this game.
All right.
If I knew someone who liked board games and had never heard of The Expanse, I think the loose theme would be enough. I could loosely explain there's people in space, they're at war, and they'd be on board. So yeah, it was really good. And if people can get a copy of it, it's quite good. I really like it. It's got nice stills from the TV show, old card games used to have, the X-Files card game and the Star Wars card game and the Star Trek card game. They've just got screenshots from the TV series, which is fun. Because you can be oh, it's that guy. That's cool. There's the spy dude who was on the Resonanti.
Oh, you mean...
What's his face? Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, I didn't ask for this. Voice of the guy from that video game.
Deus Ex.
Deus Ex, yeah.
Yeah, it's that guy.
That guy.
Yeah, so it's fun. I'm not going to say it's the best board game I've ever played, but it was quite surprising. We did play another war game called Inish, which is spelled Innis, but it's Scottish, so it's Inish. And it is very weird. But I thought that was a lot more fun.
Is there a South English version called In
that, you're a clan, and you're trying to get control of Scotland or a weird Celtic. I chose to play
Wales. You could make one where you're like a gang in London, and it's called In It.
I was playing as Wales because I started off in the valley. So I was Wales, and I rampaged across Celtic lands.
As the Welsh would.
Yeah, and it was really quite fun. I would recommend that one. If you're going to buy that, that's an easier sell for people because it's more... It's also really complicated. We played a lot of really complicated games.
Of course. Well, we'll get into the next topic, which is a really complicated game in a minute. But that sounds great. So before we get into that whole Warhammer stuff, we'll have to just bore Mike a little bit here.
Mike, did you ever play Magic the Gathering?
I didn't. I think I maybe played 1 or 2 games back when I was in my late teens.
You dodged the bullet then, basically.
I think we were just more into. We liked to play Jihad, which was based on Vampire, the Eternal.
Ah, yeah, you were playing that in
yeah. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we still have our old cards there, and actually,
wasn't that from Wizards as well? The Vampire one.
There's some company that's bought the rights to it now because it sort of went out of.
No, it says. Yeah, Vampire: The Eternal Struggle, published as Jihad.
Yeah,
the first limited. Yeah, that was original. Well, White Wolf Publishing, I guess. But it was initially published by Wizards, also designed by Richard Garfield. Okay, right. Yeah.
So that's still a good game, by the way. But we can talk about that in the show.
Right.
So you dodged a bullet because Magic never got into you when you were young enough to have your. Just get addicted to the feel of the cards.
To the smell when you open the boosters. And it's still a nice smell, but it kind of drives me insane. I thought, it brings me back to my youth, but it's a different smell now. I guess they changed printing.
I'm pretty sure they didn't have that weird blue glue in it back in.
Yeah. So we have to, for Mike, this is great because, you might know this, but in, 2012, 2011, Dave got me back into Warhammer. And I would probably be rich and be able to afford a Ford Mustang now if I just hadn't spent all that money on Warhammer and just saved it.
Fab. Yes.
Even without there being no interest right now, but now I got my revenge on Dave because I got actually on the Discord. I saw the online game coming out, Arena. And I think I talked to, it must have been Joe on the Discord.
Yeah.
And he said he was playing it. And I'm like, is it good? And he's like, yeah, it's quite good. And I played it. And 2 days later, I'm buying physical cards.
Oh, it's so good.
And then I got Dave back in.
Well, because I resisted for quite a while. So I had a friend who was in the closed beta and somehow could invite me. I was like, no, give it to someone else. I'm done with Magic. I'm never.
Oh my god! Why didn't you call me up, man? We're running a podcast here.
And then you got into it. And I was like, okay, I'll just install it. I'll play one game. It can't be that good. And then here I am, fucking 40 hours into listening to back episodes of Draft podcast.
I'm doing that too now.
So fucking addicted. Right. So Fab posted, so we were chatting the other day about drafts, and you had a go at one, and you sent a photo of your deck that you made.
Right.
And you lost 3 games?
Yeah, 3. I went 0-3.
So in the green room chat right now, I'm posting a link to your deck list because I made it on Tinterweb.
Oh wow! I'll put that. I'll put that in the show notes as well.
Because I couldn't be bothered doing the maths by hand to work out what cards you have.
Well, that's quite smart.
Because it turns out, playing Magic is a thing that makes you realize how bad at mental arithmetic you are.
Well, I don't need to realize that, but yeah, that's one of my major problems.
You add up the same 10 numbers, and you 4 times you get 4 different numbers every time.
I got. So I'm quite proud of myself because I got what's that card that I have in there 4 times?
Lich Izareth the Awakener.
No, I got what's that? Oh God, where is it? Infectious Horror. I got that about 6 times, and I'm quite proud of myself that I only picked it 4 times. Because you can only have 4 of the same card.
In draft, you can have as many copies of the same spell as you want.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. What?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Oh fuck! I was feeling good. That was the only thing about my deck I was feeling good about. It's probably not a good card anyway, but yeah.
Don't worry. I'm going to cut some of those probably. So I guess Fab went for a red-black deck.
Well, I can actually tell you. I can look this up. I didn't post the screenshot, right? But I have it here, so I can probably tell you my first pick. I can wait. So my first pick from my first pack was Death Baron. So it's a rare, black rare. Skeleton is a 2/2 for 3 for 1 and 2 black. And it has skeletons you control and other zombies you can all get +1/+1 and have death touch. So I got that.
So just to jump in here. So my understanding of the draft is that a pack is opened and then people take turns taking cards, one card out of each pack.
Normally, in the real world, you have 8 people. Each of them have 3 booster packs. So it costs like £11 to do it, ish. And then everyone sits. They open their first pack. They take a card out of it. They put it, to the side. They're going to use it later, and they pass the card. They pass their pack left.
Yeah.
And then everyone now has a booster pack with 1 fewer cards, and then you pick again, and you keep doing that until you're out of cards, and then you open the second pack and then pass it the other direction, and then you do that until there are no more cards, and then you open the last pack and pass it left again, like you did at the start, and you continue, and at the end you then build a deck and then play some games in however much time you have. Like it depends. Sometimes there's a Swiss thing where you play like everyone, or like you play like 5 rounds. Sometimes it's just like best of 3 kind of thing.
Yeah, and I was playing the simple arena mode here, so there were only 3 games.
Yeah, online it's executed differently. You always draft against the AI.
Well, on Arena, there's also Magic Online, which works differently, but we're not talking about that because it's fucking ugly.
It's horrible. So in Arena, you draft against the AI. So you pick a card, and you immediately get given the next step because a machine's already like picked a card from the pack you're getting, which means it's quicker to do. And it's actually it's quite interesting because you don't have to worry about what you're giving other people, because those AI bots that are also drafting just disappear straight away. So the aim of the game isn't necessarily to stop people getting good cards.
So you can't do the thing which I guess they call hate picks.
Hate drafting.
Where you just take one out because you don't want an enemy to... So you're playing like... I play Black Rat and I'll take like a white card out because it's a really strong white card.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very deep.
And you don't... And because it's online, you don't need to pick the expensive cards because there's no way of selling them. So you draft the cards and then you make a deck. And then Fab sent me the list and I made it on Tinterweb, and you were like, you lost 3 games, help. What I did...
Okay, so one thing I have to say. So I was... So one thing I don't really understand is like how many lands you put in. So right now I'm using what Arena gives me for that because it kind of does it automatically, and I got really, really, really mana screwed.
In the sense that you didn't have enough.
In the first game I just had wrong. I just only had black. I just only had swarms. And in the second one, I just didn't have enough. The third one was okay, but I lost because of other reasons, I guess.
Yeah. So this is the first thing I noticed is that you have 51 cards. The way that the maths works is essentially you are extremely unlikely, like it's nigh on impossible, to draft enough cards to fill a deck bigger than 40 cards. 40 cards is the minimum amount of cards you're allowed to have in a limited format. If you do magically draft like 60 amazing cards, fantastic, that's great. But generally, like there aren't enough good cards to make a bigger deck.
Right. So I had more than 40 cards in this deck, and so I put too many in.
Cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that makes the kind of like estimating how many things you need sort of a solved problem. So generally people go with 17 lands, which is what you have. But the problem with that is you have 17 lands in a much larger deck, so you're less likely to draw them.
Right, so I guess that's why I was getting mana screwed.
Yeah. Mana screw is obviously a mechanic of Magic, and it's a thing that will happen occasionally.
Yeah, so people who don't play, it means... this annoys me on Magic podcast, by the way, so I'm going to try to be better here. So that means... So Magic works... You can generally play one land a turn, and a land gives you a mana thing. So, and you have different colors. So mountains give you red, swamps give you black, forests give you green, and mana screws means either you're not playing enough. So you want to play a land each turn, and either you're just not drawing them, you're not drawing enough, or if you have a deck like this deck is of 2 colors, you're like drawing the wrong color. Let's say I have all red lands, but all the spells and creatures and whatever I've drawn are all black. Then I can put the land down, but I can't play the spells.
Yeah. So with 17 lands, you draw on average about 1 in 3 cards will be a land. So in your opening hand, you're hoping for like 3-ish lands to play things. And then after that, you're aiming for about 15 or 16 creatures, and then 7 or 8 non-creature spells to make it up. Limited is very much a creature-dominated format. So people don't know, creatures are things that stick on the board. They're like soldiers, and you can attack and defend with them. There are other things which you can play as spells, which happen once, or they give a lasting effect to the board. Largely because you're not able to construct the deck beforehand, in that you're probably going to have like only 1 copy of the amazing spell you have. You can't reliably draw it, so it's generally more creature dominated because you can put more creatures in, you can play them, rather than trying to draw your amazing combo that you're unlikely to, let alone draw, let alone draft, let alone be able to make it happen, kind of thing. So 17 lands, 15 creatures, 8 non-creature spells. That's like your standard thing. You might want to twiddle those a little bit depending on things. The actual ratio of lands that Arena picks is quite useful, or is quite good, because it basically does the maths. It looks at all the symbols, all the coloured mana symbols on your cards, adds them up, and then works out what fraction of red.
I was guessing that. I'm shit at math. I was guessing if this computer program can't do it, I don't know what the hell.
So it does that. So that's sort of the first thing with your deck, is that if you made it 40, if you just picked the bare best cards and had it at 40, you're more likely to draw them without drawing things that you just don't. Yeah,
I guess my other big problem is that I don't really know which cards are good. I mean, I've started looking at what, like, for creatures, what they cost versus how tough they are and what effects they have and stuff.
So Fab has come across what is called the vanilla test, which is where you compare its converted mana cost to its strength and toughness. So the converted mana cost is you take up all the different colors of mana you need to spend to cast the spell. So, like, say it costs 1 colorless and 1 green. That's a 2 mana spell, and you compare it to the strength and toughness. So a vanilla test pass is, if you spend 2 mana, you're expecting about a 2/2 creature, so 2 attack and 2 defense. So that's like the first stage of it. If it's, say, got evasion, which is flying's like the simplest mechanic, which is flying creatures have to be blocked by other flying creatures or things that can have the keyword reach, which is sort of like a spider that's sort of trapping your little fairy in a web kind of thing. So evasion is a good thing. It's a bonus. So you might end up with like a 2/1, so 2 attack, 2 defense. 2 attack, 1 defense creature with flying would be quite good. You can also have things with side effects, saying, say you had a 3/2, so 3 attack, 2 defense for 2. You're like, that's quite good compared to a vanilla creature, a vanilla bear. They're called bears because historically there was a 2/2 bear that cost 2 mana, I think. If it passes the vanilla test really well, there's generally a drawback. So say you had that creature, it might be that creature attacks if that creature attacks each turn if able, which means you never get the option to stop attacking, so you might lose it. The vanilla test is really important for picking creatures because some of them are just like shit. There are bad cards in Magic. that are specifically just terrible everywhere. And those are part of the game in order to kind of make it more fun for people to identify what's crap and avoiding it. So you feel better when you identify good cards and know when to avoid bad cards. It's like another whole level of the game.
And also, as Maro says in this podcast, you can't really, like, if you have 250 cards or whatever in a set, they can't all be good. Because also, if they all be good, it's like, the light and dark thing. How do you know the light from the dark?
It would be boring if everything was good, because it would be... Essentially, if everyone played the same deck, it would come down to mostly who drew the best hand, and then also a little bit of who made better decisions. So it wouldn't be tremendously interesting.
This is so amazingly... Like, when I played this 20 years ago, right? When I was a kid, I didn't know what draft was. I didn't know all this crap. I just played stuff because it looked cool.
It's amazing how far, like, draft has come in, like, the last 10 years. Because the kind of theories people come up with for rating cards and theory crafting all these things, it has like actual like innovation happening, which is kind of insane. Because there used to be this rule called bread, which
I listened to a podcast about this today.
Yeah, so the idea of bread is it's a sort of rough order in the order of which you should prioritize.
Bomb, refusal, evasion. What's A again? I don't know.
So A and
these dudes.
The kind of actual... The problem with bread is that people sort of came up with this acronym to make things work around it. B stands for bombs. You should always pick bombs. Bombs are cards that like are going to win you the game soon. So right now in M19, they're probably like the big dragon lads because they're really fucking good. They're just good cards. They're like 5 out of 5. They're amazing. R is removal. Removal is really important because it takes it off the board without you losing creatures. So it's basically like spells like murder, which let you kill a creature, murder. And then you can like smack people in the face with it.
Fucking murder.
So you should get removal. Removal is good. Evasion / efficient spells. This is where it already gets vague. Means that you should prioritize spells that are good. So things that allow you to gain card advantage. So say I play one spell and that causes you to lose 2 spells. So I have a card that kills 2 of your creatures. That's a 2 for 1. So I spent 1 card, you spent 2. I have the card advantage because I now have more cards than you. Your resources are depleted. Or I spend a small amount of mana to destroy a large amount of mana that you spent on a previous turn. And evasion comes in that as well because it starts with the letter E. So like things like flying, things like menace, the things that just sort of make blocking your creatures more difficult.
Death touch, I guess.
Death touch is death touch is like sort of an evasion thing, because it won't stop them killing you, but it will kill whatever.
It'll stop them blocking you.
Yeah, if they want to
very effectively.
Whereas if there's something like this creature is unblockable, then they actually can't. And then there's A, which some people call aggro, which is basically like your burn spells, like Lava X. Because the weird thing that always trips me up is actually the only point of life that matters to your opponent is their last one. So I could deal you 19 damage, and you could then come back and deal me 20, and I'd still lose. The important thing is the last point of damage. So the burn spells are really good if it kills someone, but they're not tremendously relevant if they don't kill someone. So they're lower priority. And then there's the dregs / duds / dudes, whatever letter D you want to stick at the end, and they're the lowest priority. And that's kind of the way people used to pick Magic cards. And honestly, it's still a good framework for picking things because it's, the first 3 make a lot of sense. Then there's this thing called quadrant theory, which is fucking wild.
Oh my god.
Basically, when you look at a card, you have to think about how it helps you in like the 4 stages of the game. So there are 4 stages. One is developing, so that's early game. Basically, you're playing the cards that you drew when you started the game.
I only have one stage right now. It's losing.
Well, that is one of the stages. developing is like, is this card going to help me develop my board quicker than the opposing person? So am I going to get ahead quicker?
I.e. card that like goes down and puts a token next to it.
So exactly. So there's like
Night
cards
bullshit.
like the Goblin Invigilator,
Motivator, I think.
Motivator, that puts another creature on. So now you have 2 creatures, so you can block more things and you can attack more times. It makes it harder. Then you've got the parity quadrant, which is we've both developed equally quickly, and now we're kind of even, right? We've got maybe the same life total, a similar amount of cards in hand, similar number of creatures on the board. Does this card help in this situation? Does it help me get something over on them? So that would be something like removal, right? We're equal, and then I play a card, and I kill 2 of your creatures, or I kill a creature, and now I'm ahead. Now I've got more creatures, I can start dealing you damage. That's an important case. Then another one, the third one is when you're behind. So when you're losing, does the card help you come back from losing? So things, there's Wrath cards, which are cards that kind of sweep the board clean. Like they generally just kill all creatures on the board, and you start again.
Yeah, settling the rest.
So say
like that.
I'm playing as like a red-black aggro deck, and I'm playing loads of cards. Like I don't have a hand anymore. I've just played like 4 creatures, and I've just got nothing left in my hand. But I've got an amazing board presence, and I'm just swinging at you turn after turn, doing loads of damage. If you have a card that just says kill all creatures, and say you have 1 creature, right? You're keeping 1 creature alive. If you kill all the creatures on the board, you kill 1 of yours, but you kill all of mine. Suddenly we're at parity. Suddenly you're ahead because I've been playing all my spells. Now I've got nothing in my hand. I'm only drawing 1 a turn. I'm just playing cards off the top of my deck. You're now ahead. So those are kind of cool for...
i.e., something like Settle the Wreckage, which says exile all attacking creatures target player controls.
Exactly. So that's a card that's good when you're behind. And then the last one is winning. So is a card good when you're winning? And basically, this is, in my mind, the least important
I was going to say that sounds like the most important part.
So at this point, you don't necessarily want to... When you're winning, you want a card that helps you stay winning, maybe rather than one that makes you win harder. So if I'm winning and I've got a card that like it's just another creature, that's not tremendously good when I'm winning because I've got more creatures than you. I'm winning still. What will be useful when I'm ahead is like a counter spell. So when you play your Wrath and you want to kill all my creatures, you can then play your counter spell to stay winning. So those are the kind of like ways of considering what you have to kind of what bits your deck can and can't do, which is sort of a useful framework for thinking about evaluating cards, which is pretty useful. And then there's, I guess in terms of thinking about cards, there's one more thing I wanted to mention is there's this thing called BCSM, which sounds dirty, but it's not. It's best case scenario mindset. So what you're doing is you're looking at a card and then you're imagining the most insane combo it could ever do. Like, you're like, okay, so I've got my like 14 goblin tokens on the field, and then I play this guy who gives them all +1. That's amazing. That's like an extra 14 damage. And what you're actually right in that point, like it's irrelevant. Like that's never going to happen. You're never going to have that many creature tokens on the table. So you want to avoid thinking of cards in their best case. You want to think of like, how likely is it that I'm going to be able to pull these things off? So I guess this kind of like goes into what I would have done to your deck. I guess we'll post the deck lists in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll put them in already. If you reload our running order, you'll see it. So
best case scenario mindset, right? You have 2 copies of Smelt, which is a 1-mana red spell that just says destroy target artifact, and it's an instant, which is like best case scenario. Like you blow up one of their like bomb rares, which is really good. However, there aren't actually that many artifacts in the set, and the really good ones are rare. So it's actually quite unlikely that you would be able to do that. So
I guess so. We have to say this is M19 draft.
Yes,
I guess.
Right now, some quick drafts are then.
Some of the errors I made is I was probably thinking Ravnica here, which there's lots. Well, there's artifacts in there that are really good. But you're right. Yeah. In M19 there aren't that many.
And also you have to consider that you're spending an entire card to to do that.
Right.
When quite a few of the artifacts can just be destroyed with creatures or other things, or sometimes maybe ignored. Another thing is acts of treason, which I fall into all the time because I think, man, this is amazing, because it's actually really good in like things like EDH, where stealing people's creatures is super relevant. But acts of treason, basically, it steals a card. It steals a creature your opponent controls, and you get to control it for a turn, and you can attack with it. And this is quite good if they've got an amazing creature. If they don't have an amazing creature, or if they have no creatures, this card's a dead card, and it's just clogging up your deck. There is a case where it's good. If you have a deck that is revolving around sacrificing your own creatures to do things, then it's quite useful because you're 2-for-1ing at that point. Like you're playing one card to steal your opponent's creature, and then you're getting an effect from sacrificing that creature that you control. That's quite good, but I wouldn't take 2 of them in there. I'd take 0. Yeah.
I love how diplomatic he is.
I was trying to get down to 40 is my kind of thing.
Right.
Someone might be take 41, but from everything I've read, I've never taken 41 because basically the math says that you probably shouldn't. Similar thing for Crash Through. I looked at... So Crash Through is a 1-mana spell. It's a sorcery, which says creatures you control gain trample until the end of the turn. So that means if I do damage to a creature, any leftover damage just goes to the controlling player.
Right.
And then you get to draw a card. I just removed that because in your deck, there are lots of creatures that are roughly around 2/2, 3/1. There's a couple that there's like a 6/3. So actually the amount of trample you would get isn't great.
See, I didn't think about that. I thought, well, trample, and you can draw a card for 1 red. That's good.
So that's the kind of like upside of this. Is it costs a card, but really take up a space in your deck. But if you're not using the trample, you're spending 1 mana to draw a card.
Yeah, well,
whereas if you didn't put it in, you just spent 0 mana to draw the card. Yeah. Double cast, I would cut that. You've got 1 copy of double cast. That's actually a really good name for a spell because what it does is that the next spell you cast, you do twice.
All right, yeah.
I took that out just because it's a pain to set up. So you have to draw double cast, which is 2 red mana. You then have to also draw the spell you want to do twice, and I wasn't sure. Fiery Finish is probably what you want to do twice. You then have to have enough mana to cast both of them.
Right.
And at this point, you're like, that's quite a rare thing, borderline.
Well, let's just caress would be nice too. You get to destroy 2 creatures and get 6 life.
Yes, that's pretty good.
Although, I see right now, right, so I was building this deck to be quick, aggro. Why the hell do I have life gain in this? That's bullshit.
Yeah.
You don't need you don't need life gain in a fast aggro deck.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, you're bang on there. Like,
well, I did. I wrote. So just I wrote a post today on my blog that I'm getting back into Magic, and I think the Magic card that mostly explains how I work with Magic right now, how I feel about it, is totally lost. Yeah,
definitely. And then you had 4 Infectious Horrors. What I did is...
And I knew I could have... If I had only known, I could have taken 6 of them.
So I took out 2 of them because they are 4 mana and they're a 2/2.
Right. Yeah, too expensive for just like the 2 life then enemy uses as well.
2/2 is a 2/2 toughness is a thing you'll be trading against all the time. You'll be trading with 2 1s, and it won't be worth the 4 mana. So I just took it down to 2. I took it down because still losing 2 life is still relevant. So its ability is it's a 2/2 for 3 and a black, which says whenever Infectious Horror attacks, each opponent loses 2 life.
It's just not good enough to have 4 in there.
Yeah, exactly. So
by the way, Mike, if you go to that link and look on that card, you get hover over it, you get a picture.
And it's such a Tyranid. It's disgusting.
What was the name again? Sorry?
Infectious Horror.
Yeah. I would have said Nurgle. Interesting.
Oh, it is kind of throwing up everything. So
yeah. I don't know, but it's very
that's a Nurgle demon there.
But it's very old school. Like I guess they must have recycled that graphic. They sometimes do that, especially in the in the core sets, and that is very like John Blanche era.
Oh yeah, totally. It's
Games Workshop graphics.
I want to call it a scruffy art style. It's like not super clean. It's not very precise. Like more abstract.
Yeah.
Then I cut one Walking Corpse because it is distinctly vanilla, and I was on 41 cards.
Yeah, good point.
Which then takes down to 40. And then I did a brave thing. I removed 2 Onaki Ogres.
Which I guess they're really good. I read about that. They're,
so that you have 3 of them. I removed 2 of them because they are a 4/2 for 3. Right. So the vanilla test here is that it's more powerful, but it's got less health. Because it's still going to be trading for things like the Digraph Ghoul, which is a 1-mana black spell, which is a 2/2 and enters the battlefield tapped. So it's going to trade down for quite a lot of things.
Right.
So now we're on 39 because I wanted to add Goblin Instigator.
Okay.
Because you also posted.
It was. I didn't pick that. Yeah.
Polls, and I picked Goblin Instigator because it is cheap and it's like grab. Oh god, I don't have my version open.
Well, it's one colorless, 1 red for 1/1, but it creates a 1/1 red goblin.
Yeah, exactly. So this kind of gives you that early game. If you draw that early game, you could 2 creatures on turn 2,
right,
which is quick.
I guess I could have gone for a lot more goblins in this deck.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I was going. So my problem was I pulled that Death Baron, right? And I was going for synergy with having lots of zombies.
And I guess that's so that mechanic where something buffs something else of the same type as it. It's called tribal, and in sets there are tribes. So it might be like elves, it might be spirits,
merfolk,
and
get +1/+1 if you control another merfolk, stuff like that.
I'm not super sure how if you're going tribal, you need it to be supported, and that means that there are things that buff the tribe, and there are lots of them. And to be fair, the Death Baron one's, I think, I'm not certain, but it's probably the best one.
But so you're saying I only have one thing that buffs that, and the chance that I'm drawing that is not very high.
Yeah, so I think maybe with my editing, I should remove that and put one of those Onaki Ogres back in, because at this point you don't actually have many of the other things left. But it still gives you a buff to 2 tribes, and those tribes do actually exist in the format.
And I should have, but I guess I should have.
Some sets there's tribes of 1 creature, like there's only 1 copy of it.
I knew that there were lots of, because I've been playing against mono black decks, which are just like skeletons and zombies.
And then the final thing I did was then just twiddle the lands a little bit, because by removing stuff, I'd removed a fair amount of red. So I removed some red and replaced it with black so you could cast your spells. And that is what I did. With your deck, people can comment and say how terrible I did, but that's what I did.
No, sounds good. I guess I should have. I'm learning from this that I should have actually drafted differently, probably as well.
Potentially, yeah. I mean that's another whole nother thing that like takes more skills. Like the drafting takes skill, the deck building takes skill, and then there's playing the game, which takes like as much skill as well. So it's super good. But yeah, it's not bad. I was wondering like if we made both of these decks and then just played them against each other. Although we can't do that, can we? We can't challenge each other to 40-card decks.
No, probably not. But I guess I'm willing to agree that you would win.
Yeah.
You know more than me, obviously.
And it takes practice and reading stuff and listening to podcasts, because Limited Resources is basically where I learned everything I know about Limited.
Yeah, I've been listening to that. problem with that is, well, I have to look up cards all the time. And that's not that bad, but it's like I'm listening to the back catalog and they're talking about like, I don't know, what is it? Zendikar. You're talking about Zendikar, and I have no, I know a I don't know a single card about Zendikar, and then if I learn about them, it's like really not knowledge I can use right now.
Yeah, and I about I think I'm on like 20 something, so I'm like 40 hours in, and they're on World Wake, which is the second expansion to Zendikar. Well, the first expansion from Zendikar.
This website
it's entirely not relevant, but they're still talking about things like bread, which is not as sophisticated in inverted commas as current things, but it's still like a very useful thing to think about. Like even I'm still thinking about it. Like removal is bombs and removal. They're super relevant in every format.
I love this website you created that deck on, this tapped out website. You can like draw a hand. And
yeah, it's really good.
Quite good.
It's interesting because I swear it's not changed in any way since I used it in 2013.
Well, when I last played Magic, there weren't any websites.
Well, yeah, that's true.
They were still not saying how rare the cards were, I think, back then. Like I wrote, so just to give you the feeling here. So so my cards were mostly from 4th and 5th edition. Mm-hmm. And also like Ice Age, Homelands, Mirage, stuff like that.
I remember I was fascinated by the fact that there were cards that were worth so much back in the day.
Oh my God.
Black Lotus still...
Oh God, yes, Black Lotus. I know how... Let me see, Black Lotus.
Yeah, so...
Let's see how much that's worth. You can buy it right now on eBay for 195,000 euros.
Excuse me, what?
So it's at this point it's a collector's item. So they're
Christ, how much, Fab?
195,000. I guess this is an alpha.
Nearly 200,000 euros.
I think that's a piss take.
Yeah, it probably is.
That can't be.
Might be. There's one for 16,000. It's a beta black bordered, but there's probably websites where you can look that up.
But that's what I mean. That's still.
I mean, it's insane. So I just looked up the deck, right? They've linked like a website, right? And there you can click on like decks and stuff. And I looked up a deck, and this is a Jeskai Control deck that a guy at Seth Mansfield, I think he came 6th at Baltimore STG Open, right? And this deck, it tells you helpfully here you can buy the deck on websites, and it's like all the cards together are $1,118 if you buy them single.
I love drafting because it has a flat cost and it gets you cards that you get to then build decks with later on if you want to do it. So there are lots of those. The thing Black Lotus has is that it was in the first set that was released called Alpha, and it is broken as fuck. It is ridiculously powerful, which means in when people agree to play with the old cards, like everyone wants to have it because it does this insane thing. It costs no mana to play it, and then it gives you 3 mana of any color of your choice. So it lets you basically do turn 1 wins without the opponent getting a go. And the important thing to have is that they have they reprinted it twice.
So on Wikipedia, to answer your questions, it says a Gem Mint Alpha version of the Black Lotus was auctioned off for more than $87,000 in an eBay auction in 2018.
Yeah, because at this point, Black Lotuses are actually investments. I joke about Magic being an investment because generally it's not. Prices fluctuate. When things rotate out of the most competitive standard format, they just plummet. But Black Lotus is a card that is part of the list that Wizards said that they'd never reprint. So there was this big controversy early in Magic when people had invested money in cards and people decided to work out that people would pay loads of money for really powerful cards. And they were sort of having businesses around this, and they were seeing Magic cards as investments. But then a set came out and they reprinted valuable cards because they were like, well, there are loads of people who don't have these cards, right? How do we get the game into more people's hands? And that just like dropped the price, and people lost a load of money doing it. So there was basically after that, Wizards said, these are cards we will never reprint again because we don't want to fuck you over again because people were, very, very angry. So Black Lotus I got reprinted in Vintage Masters, but then, which is a more recent thing, but they twiddle, yeah. So it's a card that people see as an investment, right? Because a card that came out in 1993 that will never be reprinted, there's a finite number of those, and it's essentially, it's a collector's item that, people collect vintage cars. We made 50 of these Ferraris, and we not making any more. It's exactly the same as that, except it's a tiny bit of cardboard that's worth more than my house.
I'm so fascinated by this, and I've always been fascinated by it ever since I started with the.
It kind of scares me.
Stuff,
looking at it, wow, that's insane.
Because how long has that card been?
I think 1993.
Yeah,
there you go. Alpha, or 1992.
Wow.
Since the dawn of Magic, it was one of the first Magic.
That is amazing.
Which is insane. And the price range of things is mad. So when you're drafting in person, there's this, and you're doing it casually, not at a competition where you want to win, but in a fun setting. You can do money drafting, which is basically you're trying to make you a cool deck. But then if you come across the card in the set that's worth the most money, you just pick it straight away because it pays for your draft as well. So,
I don't know which ones are worth anything. So,
you have to go in knowing that these are the most expensive cards. But my friend at university went to do drafts and he pulled a shiny version of a card that was worth money, and then he sold it for 40 quid, and that paid for his next 4 weeks of Magic. And then he was just immediately broken even, and it was amazing. So some people do that. But online, you can't do that because you can't sell cards. Or at least in Arena, you can't sell cards, which I guess is an improvement. Should we talk about something that's not Magic the Gathering?
Probably. And I need to...
Okay. I'm sorry for just jumping in there. I did listen, but obviously the level of technical understanding of what was going on was...
Oh, I can completely understand you. I was like that a few weeks ago. And then
but I would say we could do a collectible card game version where I can talk a bit about the Star Wars and Vampire collectible card stuff that I did, and we can do more Magic as well.
Yeah, shall we do that on the next episode when we're together? That sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, why not?
Something Mike can definitely talk to us about is the recent 40k development.
Before we get into Warhammer, it is kind of amazing. I've been out of this game for 20 years, and it's still there, and they're making expansions. So I figured out that I was gone for 20 years, and for these 20 years, they've pretty much made 3 expansions each year.
Yeah, and it is stronger than ever. There are more players than ever, which is insane. It's basically mainstream at this point. People on YouTube play it, and the kind of more popular kind of board game channels and stuff play it.
But I mean, it is from that. So we get the curve into Warhammer, but it is a bit like Warhammer, right? It's been around for ages, just very long time.
But I mean, with Magic, it's like comics or the Marvel universe or whatever. That it's just a thing that exists now, and it's alive.
It's what I find amazing. I've been thinking about this. So I've been listening to this podcast of Mark Rosewater, who's the game designer, and he talks about how Garfield came up with it by basically combining trading cards, sports trading cards, and then thinking, let's make a game out of that, And I mean, there have been games that were played with sports trading cards, I guess, but make a real complex game out of that, and he completely pushed aside trading cards, right? I mean, normal trading cards, just sports star trading cards. I guess they still exist, but they're more of a niche now.
Oh yeah,
because
I mean they're there for sure, but it's just, and I think again, it's actually just as we're talking now, the similarities between what Games Workshop have done and what Wizards have done. It's kind of so similar because you're here expanding. You give yourself room to expand. Which is what they did with 8th edition in Warhammer. and when they nuked
we actually
fantasy battles, right?
Dave and me were fighting about this on the last episode, actually.
Exactly, because they needed room to expand, and they needed room to just let the universe grow sort of organically rather than being constrained. And it seems similar with Magic, right? That they can keep pushing out expansions that add new creatures or spells or whatever, and that's possible to do.
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, you haven't listened to this. You couldn't, because I haven't, the little peek behind the curtain. I haven't released the last episode when we record this. But Dave and me were basically fighting, and because I was saying, so what I learned about how Wizard did this, and what I really found interesting is that they came up with this thing called a multiverse. Right? I mean, they didn't come up with that, but they basically moved their thing, which was set on like a planet, whatever, to a multiverse, and then went like, we can do all this other crazy shit. I mean, there can be multiverse, and I had kind of wished they had done that with Warhammer. So that old Warhammer. I mean, it's a pedantic point, but I'm a geek, so that it would still exist.
Yeah, so you would have wanted them to be visionary enough when they did the first edition. Is that what you're saying?
No, I just mean when they did Age of Sigmar. Like, they could have gone, instead of wiping it, I guess.
Oh, I get you now.
Yes. Do it like a multiverse. Yeah. And like have do cool stuff, have Sigmar come across or whatever. I guess they kind of did that unofficially. I was thinking about this after we recorded the episode, because like Blood Bowl still exists.
Yes. But Blood Bowl exists in its own universe as well. Blood Bowl doesn't exist in the old world. It exists in the Blood Bowl world.
I don't know. It's basically the old world. I mean,
no, but it's a separate.
Yeah, and go immediately go the whole hog and go the.
Also, so I work with time. I worked out what I was trying to say about.
Do you have that as well, where you like thinking about the show? You're like, I actually wanted to say this.
Yeah, all the time. For the entire time this week, I've been thinking, what do I actually mean about the things I said last time? So I was saying that to me, the lore in Magic doesn't matter as much because it feels sort of ephemeral, and that's not what I mean. Because I was thinking about the X-Files, and it occurred to me that. So I've said on before, the thing in the X-Files that everyone seems to like is the Monster of the Week episodes, where there's a nice self-contained episode that describes, there is a monster and they beat it. I don't like those episodes.
Sherlock Holmes,
Yeah, I like the other ones.
Yeah. I like, the big, like, the lore, the mythic, the mythos episodes which build the lore. To me, because Magic jumps around a lot and will have, like, a bit of time in Ravnica, and a bit of time in Zendikar, to me, in my brain, like, because it's away for so long, it feels like a Monster of the Week episode. Whereas because Warhammer is around for, like, the length of Warhammer Fantasy or the length of 40k, that to me feels like a Mythos episode. So it feels like everything that I am experiencing and reading about ultimately will feed into something. It might not be a satisfactory ending because it's the X-Files, it's not a satisfactory ending. But at least it feels like on the journey, it feels like, there's a journey that I'm enjoying rather than knowing that, later on. So that's kind of what I meant, in that I think the lore is still probably good, maybe. It's still sometimes, I think Innistrad Cycle makes me feel a bit like, it's a bit generic. But
that was so, I don't know.
I just don't feel like the need to get invested. To get invested, like, I just can't really be bothered because I know in a couple of sets' time that won't be the current thing that's happening.
Right, yeah. That actually makes complete sense. I mean, to me, I guess if I want to refine my feeling down, it's the other way around. I'm okay with them jumping away, but knowing it still exists. I think my problem with what Games Workshop did, and I analyzed this in the past as well. I think my problem is that they made it like not exist anymore. That's the same problem I had. I realized when Star Wars made that extended universe not exist for the new movies. And I'm more okay, I guess, with saying it's weird because it's like psychologically really weird because it's just a conceit, saying, well, this is a multiverse. It's like on another plane, right? But it's just the act of saying it still exists. And all this investment that I had, and the thing is, I never played.
Exactly.
Yeah, I never played.
That's the word.
The funny thing is that I never played Warhammer Fantasy Battles, but I was invested in the world. I read hours and hours. I read books. I read background books, even though I wasn't playing the game. And it's a bad feeling when they make that. It feels like that wasn't worth anything, when it's gone. Which to Dave, I mean, your point, when I go through this, I know your point. Your point is still there, right? Still there in my mind. But I'm just sad that they're not, making new stuff in. But I think it's just a psychological thing.
No, but you're totally right about investment, because I'm looking around, and I see people that are into Overwatch and League of Legends lore, right? Or the Marvel stuff and all that.
Isn't Laurie doing League of Legends lore now?
Exactly.
Laurie
that was one of the
Graham McNeil.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, they are good guys, right? They do it well. Like, any day if I wanted to do a good story in a setting, I would take those guys on, no problem. I mean, I would be absolutely sure that they would take the flavor, put their own little spin on it, and do what they do well as people, and do a really interesting tale. But the thing is, if you're not invested in the universe,
you're like, what? Overwatch is the universe?
No, but it is.
Yeah, it is.
There are
you're
people
right.
out there, they cosplay it, they write about it. There's fan fiction about it, and it's all very exciting.
I bet a lot of that fan fiction is getting banned from Tumblr shortly.
No, let me tell you, it's all on Pornhub. Pro tip. Okay. There's a lot of Overwatch.
I didn't know that, just for future reference. But anyway,
you got it from me. I did the research.
But the thing is, like, you can only invest in so many universes as a normal person, I think. Which, when I define normal, I go, okay, a person that has commitments and things they have to do outside of, reviewing the stuff. If it's your job to look into them, great. Then you can do several universes, no problem.
Right. Yeah.
But as a regular Joe like me, I have to pick my battles. And a long time ago, I invested in it as a teenager. And I'm sticking with it. And then I can totally get your disappointment, Fab. Even if you're not a player, but you like the universe and you invested in it by buying the books and reading them, it's a total disappointment to just go like, oh, it's been nuked. There's nothing left.
Just imagine that you
factions
40k now. But, I mean, just imagine that. The hurt that would cause.
My heart. I think I'm getting a heart attack.
Actually, I'm joking. At this point, with the Horus Heresy books, this is my hot take. If they nuked the 40k universe, they'd never have to wrap up the Horus Heresy universe. I could just stop reading them and I'd be okay with that.
That's a good hot take, to be honest.
But we'll get to that. We'll get to that when we talk about Black Library. But yeah.
Just one thing I wanted, just because before we get into that, and we'll be I love Games Workshop, but just one thing I wanted to point out as well. One thing I've really come just listening to the Magic podcast that Mark Rosewater does. One thing I really appreciate about with it is the amount of credit they give individual artists. I mean, this just occurred to me when you mentioned Laurie. I mean, every Magic card, it says at the bottom, it says who the guy was who drew the picture. And one thing that really, that destroyed a bit of my. I mean, this was even, I guess, before they nuked, the old world. It was just like when they stopped like printing who did the codexes and stuff. And part of my investment is also like knowing the people that do that stuff. And I like to give artists credit. That just rubbed me the wrong way. I wish they would. I mean, Games Workshop went back on a lot of dubious decisions they did in the last few years. Their social media stuff is a good example. I mean, they're really good with that now. Wasn't the community site just celebrated?
I think that's the circle now, where if you want to know who pulls the levers on different areas, you need to be on Twitter, be on the community side, and YouTube as well. Actually, that's where you get the flavor of who does what.
It's not so much for me.
Products, it will be less obvious.
Yeah, it's for me. It's not so much also knowing who did it. I just like, I'd like to give him credit if I'm like at games, at the Black. I mean, for Black Library, that. But if you're like at Warhammer World and you just per chance meet somebody, it's like, well, I really appreciated what you did with the Dark Angels Codex or whatever. I like knowing that. I mean, they were saying this is because they got hate, but I mean, come on. And I personally don't think that's
they
real.
needed to grow up as a company, wasn't it? They just needed to get into the 21st century and kind of go. Community outreach is a very good thing, and you can just see how it's exploded when they started doing that.
Yeah, really I could have told them that 10 years ago, but yeah, okay. Yeah.
No, but I mean, better late than never, because I'm loving the new Games Workshop. I know you have reservations about what with their credits and all that, and I think that's a valid point.
It's not so much reservations; it's just something I want to say, because I mean, if at some level I'm a creative as well. So I write articles, or I haven't done it for a while, but I was writing in the magazine, or I'm writing on the website, right, for Heise, and at the point where they would go is like, we're not printing your name on the article anymore. I mean, in journalism, it's kind of the same thing. There's like a very well-known gaming magazine in the UK called God, now I forgot the name.
PC Gamer.
Is it Edge? No. What's the one where they don't print like the contributors?
I'm not sure.
Is that Edge? God, I see the cover in front of me and I can't remember the name. Bloody hell. I'll have to look this up now.
It's a UK gaming.
Otherwise, no, I'm just gonna. Is it Edge? No, it's not Edge.
Retro Gamer?
No, actually, I'll look at it. It must be from Future Publishing, so there must be a list of. Wait.
110% gaming. Yeah, Edge is one. Yeah.
God, why can't
I remember? PC Gamer is like ancient, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but PC Gamer obviously is like they are, they print who does stuff gaming. Here we go. It must be from Edge. I think it's Edge. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. So that's just well respected. I think it's Edge, and they just have this brand. I think they had it from the beginning, where it's like, we're the magazine. We don't write who the writer was, and as somebody who's creative, that just rubs me the wrong way. I mean, that would be like G.R.R. Martin writing books and his publisher going like, we can't put your name on that. Like, it's just like it's like, this is like Random House, it's like Random House, Song of Ice and Fire. I mean, there's one guy who sat down and thought about this stuff and wrote this down, and might as well give him credit. But that's a whole nother story. Let's where were we?
No, but I say we were meant to do a journalism special anyway, weren't we?
Oh God, I need to. Yes,
for the new year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll put that down. I'll put that on.
When you're officially a freelance, you can sprout everything you want about
when I can talk freely about Heise and then not get any any jobs on them anymore. But yeah, I get your point.
No, but I think we should, Fab.
I'll put it.
It's important.
I'll put it on the list right now. I'll put it on the production schedule while we talk. It's the magic of Git.
Is it in Git? Then it will happen.
Yep. Yeah, you can't change that. It's cryptographically signed.
Yeah, I have to make a sort of revealing statement, which was that I am now on GitLab.
I pressured you. Yeah.
and I had never ever in my wildest dreams thought I'd actually be registering there. But in order to put in show notes,
I made him
part of the Fab machine. Then
I made him.
I have to be on it.
And now you have a skill.
I have a skill. I know how to use Git.
So I'll put you in here. I'll put that in. Yeah. Journalism special. Okay. Back to Warhammer.
Yes. What is happening in the Vigilus system, Mike?
My goodness, Vigilus. Oh, it is touted as one of the most important events in the universe.
Wait! I missed this. What's going on?
Yeah. So they're ranking the next big expansion, which is a campaign book, which is called Warzone Vigilus. They are ranking that with the War of Armageddon or the Fall of Cadia.
Okay, so because usually these were really small, right?
Yeah, this will be a huge sort of new push in the lore, I think. So the way I understand it is that...
but they're moving the lore forward? What? Heresy!
Yeah, they move it forward approximately one thing per year.
Yeah. So... what is happening is obviously the Scar now, the Noctus Aeterna or Cicatrix
Maleficarum,
Maleficarum, or whatever it's called, has split the galaxy in two. We have the Imperium that can still see the Astronomicon on one side, and then you have the Imperium Nihilus, which is the ones that can't see the Astronomicon. If you've read The Devastation of Baal, you know that Raputa Guilliman has put the Imperium Nihilus in the hands of Commander Dante of the Blood Angels and told him to basically try and keep the peace on the other side. Which is, of course, like a nice little thing to be told, basically, you take care of this. No, but you know what I mean.
Good luck,
yeah, go ahead.
I put all your trust, all my trust in you.
He just says, good luck, have fun.
Yeah, good luck, have fun. So obviously that it poses a huge problem to be in the Imperium Nihilus or whatever it is, because obviously it's very, very difficult to navigate. You can't contact the other side very easily, so on and so forth.
Well, you can't get reinforcements and shit, I guess.
Exactly. But there's a very, very few rare places along the Scar where there is a bridge or some kind of, transfer.
I see what they're doing.
There you go. Vigilus is one of those places where you can actually transfer from Nihilus to normal Imperium without too many problems.
So it's
space Panama Canal.
Well,
exactly.
No. To speak in historic terms, it's basically Belgium.
Yes.
So you need to bypass the Maginot Line, so yeah.
Yeah, slightly less beige, not too many fries.
Waffles? Any waffles?
Lots of trenches and warfare. Yes, all the time. So basically, this is a hotly contested area. You obviously have the beautiful Space Marines there, but the Orcs are there. Gene Stealer cults have been seen in the area. The Eldar want to put their pointy ears and
it's a big party.
Mess things up. And obviously, the Herald of Abaddon, Harkened World Claimer, a murderous Chaos Lord of the Black Legion, is coming to take it for the War Master, so he can spoil the party and make sure that there's no transfer, as you say, of materials and men and so on going on in Vigils. So the tale is set for some truly epic, huge war scale happening there. So they're publishing this book, which is a campaign book that you can play, you can play through, and if you have a gaming group, you can, play like there's 12 sort of missions or something like that. Or it has specialist detachments, which I think is something that they used in 7th edition as well, where there was special.
You got special rules for taking certain units.
Exactly. So here, for example, they have something with the Ultramarines, of course, because. Obviously, if you have a Chaos Lord coming along to sort of kick some ass, then you need a hero on the other side. And who else than
the hero of the Imperium?
The hero of the Imperium. Yes. Well, his boss, Manius Calgar, is gonna be there to try and make sure that things are sorted out. And Calgar himself has willingly said, "Okay, make me into a Primaris so I can, be a little bit more up to date." And although it nearly killed him,
dial that back. What?
Yeah. What?
Guilliman is a Primaris now?
No, Manius Calgar.
Manius Calgar. His little friend.
This is because he fed
his friend.
His little friend is
Ultramarines.
He felt rejected, right? So he was just like, nothing to do when Gilliman came back. So
no, it's funny because there is a passage in the first Dark Imperium novel. I don't know if you remember it, Dave, where obviously Gilliman reappears and he's talking to his assembled lieutenants and captains and so on, and at a certain point he's like, we shouldn't have let this happen with Ultramar, and Mortarion attacking, and blah, blah, blah. He's kind of he's bitching a bit about how everything is just really fucked up. And Manius Calgar is, he's just there in the corner, sort of looking really sad. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. So I think maybe he felt like he needed to get back into the game. So obviously he's been told that we can try and make you a Primaris, but it might kill you. And obviously he survives. And then for gaming purposes, his stats are updated and all that. But he's still wielding his gauntlets of Ultramar.
And he's bigger now.
He's bigger, better.
Are you telling me there is a even bluer, even smurfier? Are you telling me there's a process to make my little friend bigger?
Yes.
Yes, there is. So obviously, from a lore perspective, this completely shakes up things again, because we knew that they were going, okay, normal Space Marines, great job. Love your work, but we're not going to make any more of you.
Size does matter.
Yeah, but then apparently you can do this, even though you might lose a few people along the way. But that's why, obviously, the moment this was announced, people started going, "We want a Primaris Dante, we want a Primaris Asriel, and so on and so forth." So
who are these people?
I don't know where this can go. So sort of put on your belts and get ready for a wild ride. I think on all the sort of classic Space Marine heroes. We'll see what happens there.
I think a couple of them might die in the process.
I think you're right, Dave. It would be extremely cheesy and a cop-out
if none of them died. Yeah.
If none of them die, right? Because then you're a bit like, okay, if it wasn't clear before, it's very clear now that you're basically just doing this to update the Space Marines, and then you call them Primaris. But
they're doing that, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, we want to be led, fam, and feel like it's actual law. Do you know what I mean? We want to be seduced. Yeah. So
because all they actually have to do is say, well, actually, all your heroes are the bravest and the strongest of Space Marines, so obviously they survived.
Just the Dark Angels died. Oh yeah, I heard this before.
Oh, it's the thing in the basement has run away, hasn't it? That's the last thing I heard. But anyway, okay. So Vigilus seems to be a really, really exciting turn. What it means is obviously having this bridge is very important for the lore, and Primaris Calgar is very important. So since they're putting it up to War for Armageddon and Fall of Cadia sort of level of influence on the lore, I'm still thinking that there will be something in there that they haven't alluded to yet, which will push the story forward. And I can't see it clearly yet, but I'm quite excited about it. I think I will actually have to buy this. I will have to. I know with Fall of Cadia I kind of gleaned what I could of people on the internet and the community and so on, but I think this one,
if you need like an excuse for, I don't know, you might need an excuse for some people in your life. Say it's research for the podcast.
Christmas.
You do it for all of our listeners.
Yeah. But I have to say, even like from a gaming perspective, the specialist attachment, I'm quite excited about that they're introducing it, because a couple of weekends ago I played 3 games of 40k. It was 1750 points, and I had lots of fun. It was excellent.
You're actually playing this game? This is not in the spirit of the podcast.
Yeah. but I lost all the games.
Oh, that's totally in the spirit. Yeah. Okay.
I had great fun, but I lost all the games, which
you are absolved.
I'm a bit like, okay, I think the Space Marines are they're obviously the vanilla, and even when they're Blood Angels, I don't know what it is. Either it's a combination of me being a really lousy gamer.
No, it must be the Space Marines.
Yeah. So specialist attachment, bring it on. I want something new so I can at least think I have a chance. Really looking forward to it. I will buy the book, and hopefully we can talk about it at the end of the year or hopefully early next year.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And of course this is hand in glove as well with if you've seen the Orc Codex coming out, it's getting a lot of love.
I must say, when they, that regimental standard was always great, but when the Orcs took it over, that was just hilarious.
Yeah, it's
October.
So yeah, October. No, but they've really hit the nail on the head with the Orcs. They've just knocked it out of the park. Like, you have so many people that are just they're throwing themselves as getting Orc armies set up. It's fantastic to watch.
I mean, it's also not that hard, right? For that brainstorming, you just get really drunk. Yeah. And then the ideas start flowing.
Smash something together.
Yeah, it's the beautiful thing about Orcs. It's like even like the intern, because he's like, oh, you're doing cat design today? Yeah, you're doing the Orcs.
You cut out there, Fab, actually.
I was saying, even the intern, you just do the Orcs. You do cat design, you just do the Orcs. Start with the Orcs.
Yeah. So there's a guy in my gaming group here. He used to play Orcs back in the day, and he sort of resurrected some of his stuff, and then he's just bought a load of the new things, and I just get all these pictures with him. He's working manically on trying to get this Orc army up, because of course there's a lot of models like that. It's just it's a huge army. Like it'll be so much fun to play against, and I will still lose, and it'll be fun. So
you can't lose against Orcs. Come on.
Oh, you can. You totally can. I think 8th edition right now seems to be more of a horde game to me, really.
Right, it swings back and forth, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, because I was playing against...
it's like melee shooting. Melee, that's the 40k swing, isn't it?
I was playing against Tyranids, Chaos, and Eldar. So of course Eldar weren't maybe like a horde army, but this guy who plays them, he favors jet bikes. He has a lot of them. I call them the angry bees. It's amazing.
Same hand.
Just completely get overwhelmed by them. And then also I think I've talked about the psychic phase. That I keep saying I want to bring more librarians, and I never do. But I think in the next version of my list, I will have 3 librarians, because I'm so sick and tired of getting killed by smite. Do you know what I mean? Just all the mortal wounds all the time. So so that's my sort of hobby.
Can you quickly explain to me, because I've seen this, but I don't know what it is. What's that Blackstone Fortress thing?
Oh yeah, that's really great as well. So that ties in with they did an battle box there a couple of months ago, where you had the Mechanicum and the Necrons fighting over a place where there was Blackstone, which is some kind of sort of mysterious material that can do extra dimensional stuff.
It's some gubbins, the old ones used,
but aren't the Blackstone fortresses kind of like floating space stations?
Yeah, made by super old races.
Okay, so they're called that because they're made out of that stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's some kind of material that can be tamed in a way, which the Adeptus Mechanicum are trying to really do, of course, and the Necrons would know more about it, I guess, because they hark back to that era. So Blackstone Fortress, it's kind of a Warhammer Quest style game.
It's very, very Warhammer Questy. The Sheffield guys have picked up 2 copies, and and they have played some games. And
so it's 40k Warhammer Quest.
Yes,
and it looks really good. And
the models are beautiful. Like there are some amazing looking things.
Yeah. And if I was a man of infinite means and time, I would definitely have ordered it already.
Oh, exactly. Same.
It's just one of those things where
You're either one. Next year I will be a man of infinite time, but of no means.
But no means. It's just like you can never have both.
I'll go back to being a teenager.
Yeah. But yeah, it looks beautiful. I really wish I had it and I had time to play it. There's some lore stuff in there that's really interesting because they have a man of iron actually who is posing as kind of a like a combat robot. And friends of the podcast who are lore masters themselves will know that men of iron were these artificial intelligence constructs that mankind made way back in the day, way before
in the dark age of technology.
In the dark age of technology, where such things as the abominable artificial intelligence.
I don't even know about that.
Was not outlawed, so to speak, because right now one of the prime tenets of the Mechanicum is that you shall not make artificial intelligence.
Yeah, this is why they have. Servitors, right? Yeah, it's
exactly
kind of like the Butlerian Jihad in Dune, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost
that's
like one influenced the other.
Well, it's actually like I think that's one of the sensible things they have. I mean, I think.
Yeah. So obviously, mankind got burned so bad back in the day in the dark age of technology by letting these things run riot that it is still echoing into the 40k timeline, but apparently there's a few of them about in the large galaxy that is 40k. And
so when did they turn up for the first time? I'd never heard of Man of Iron.
They're old lore. They're like super old lore.
Actually, Dan Abnett used one in one of his
in the first Gaunt's book. They mentioned them.
All right.
Yeah, he actually battles. Is it a factory? I think it is.
Yeah, in the first Gaunt's Ghost, they uncover a SDC that's producing Man of Iron.
That's where it is. Yeah. That's where it is. They popped up, from time to time, but they've been this really obscure sort of thing.
Yeah.
But they've been mentioned a few times. But in Blackstone Fortress, there's a real Man of Iron there that's obviously doing his thing, and I think it's really fascinating. And for that thing, I would even maybe just consider buying the Darius Hinks book, because one of the Black Library authors wrote a book called Blackstone Fortress, and there's a short story by Guy Haley, I think.
Oh, yeah, he's good.
Man of Iron itself. So I'm actually quite interested to dive into that, because I think there might be something.
Oh, so that's that robot. All right. It looked very Fallout. I saw that on a YouTube video, and I thought, wow. Yeah.
So just think about it, that if this is artificial intelligence, like, we're not at the singularity level, but we're approaching it. What could this guy have done over the thousands of years, influencing an inquisitor of the holy orders? I mean, I'm just going like that. There's stuff here. There's a lot of plot opportunities. If they
I can tell you, he's been on Tumblr.
He's been watching questionable versions.
I understand the humans now.
Yeah.
I like those. I guess they're called spindle drones. I just looked that up.
Yes, they're like the defense mechanisms of the.
They're very War of the Worlds, and I'm talking the Tom Cruise movie.
Yeah.
Where I never liked the actual movie, but like the set, like the design of those things is really good. Oh, they're lovely minis.
Yep. So and I mean, this is just a small area of the plethora of stuff that they're releasing at the moment. I mean, we could be talking about Kill Team and.
Oh god, I still have an unopened Kill Team box here.
There's so much stuff, but we'll probably have to put that aside and talk about it another time. But at the end of the year, they will also release Chapter Approved.
Right. Yeah.
So they did one last year, which has helped sort of sum up the way the game is developing, and this will do the same thing. But what they're going to do here as well is they will put out what they call beta rules for the Adeptus Sororitas, which I think is a quite interesting way to do it. So they're really, really stepping very, very softly with the Adeptus Sororitas. I think they want to get it absolutely right. So they're gonna essentially like do a playtesting version of the rules for them before they do the codex, which I can understand why they're this cautious about it, but I'm also going like, they've been alluding to this for a while now, and they have to be really careful, like, because at a certain point it's also like, just release it.
I'm like, I'm like the screw Dave's female Marines. Just give me the fucking Sisters of Battle now.
Yeah. And, I can see what they're doing there. I hope it works out for them and they don't muddy the waters too much. And they need to release it very soon, I think, as well. So, and then I read something about that they're going to do, apart from new missions and some custom rules, stuff like that, they're also going to do custom character creation as far as
in last year's chapter approved, they did the custom Land Raider. So you could like make your own Land Raider that was sort of customized. And they're doing the same thing for making your own character that's got like cool special rules.
Oh, I love that. I'm gonna be all over that.
I hope they have a Kill Team-esque naming chart. Rolling dice and naming it, don't we?
Yeah, and I think it's the second book I need to buy, like Vigilus and then chapter approved. I think that is, just mandatory to own going into 2019.
Does sound good. It does sound good. I found
Go ahead.
Sorry. No, you go ahead.
Because the last thing I saw was that they're also going to do one where, there's rule sudden death. If you lose all your models, then you've lost.
Yeah.
But they're going to introduce some rules now for missions where if you are able to get enough points and all your units do get killed, there are going to be missions now in Chapter Approved where the sudden death rule does not apply.
Oh, that should be Blood Angel themed.
That's exactly the thing I was, because that's what I'm feeling there, just the golden host just charging over the horizon, just
we're all dead, but we achieved the mission.
Exactly. Just throwing themselves with their jetpacks and everything, just getting all the objectives and then dying a martyr's death. That's exactly what I want.
Just strap a lot of ammunition to me. I'm just gonna go in. I'm just gonna fly in with the jetpack.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
So I was very encouraged reading that. I thought that was a beautiful rule, but obviously it's not for all missions. But yeah, definitely it would suit a Blood Angels army at this point. Yeah.
I do think they're putting out too much stuff because you can't possibly keep up. But on the other hand, I'm really glad because whenever you're on, we've got like 2 hours of Warhammer shit.
No, but and I can't talk about all of it. I just can't. There's not enough time in the day. Like you have to just select an area that you're interested in and just look at that. And yes, it has its drawbacks, but on the other hand, they're one of the most successful companies now in the UK. And that says a lot, I think.
I think I think Brexit might have, helped them a bit, but yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I just love that they're one of the most successful companies, and it's like, that's what we do, lads. That is still what we do.
We've got jam, we've got cricket,
and we've got
already good at cricket.
Little soldiers you can paint.
Plastic dolls for grown men and women.
That is amazing. It is good. I do worry. I hope they. I think Games Workshop is a long-standing company, and I think their business practices. I think they're really good at that. So I really hope, and I do believe they have a plan for Brexit, but we'll see. Yeah, so before we go on, I wanted to talk about they have a new podcast. We have a podcast, so we
it's
like
it's a podcast in inverted commas.
I don't know. So they're gonna revamp the Stormcast, which I have to give it them is a great name.
It's a fucking amazing name. And the problem is, it's not a podcast.
And they'll do a 40K podcast called Voxcast,
which is
an equally good name as well. Yeah,
that was actually, I have to be honest. That was when we did Angels of Death, that was my work in progress name for it.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to take
of litigation.
Sue them.
I wasn't so much afraid of litigation as I felt like it was not my right to use that. You know? I would have thought, bring it on. At that point, I was a student, not like you can get any money. But yeah, so they're gonna make the creative 40K. It's probably be out before this. But so it's like video, right? And they build a nice studio. It looks like a bit like the Twitch studio with like brick walls and stuff.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's every YouTuber's studio ever.
Yeah.
It looks nice. Although my question is just as you said: is this going to be a podcast? Is there going to be an RSS feed? Otherwise,
can I listen to it in an audio-only format?
Hmm.
Can I? Yeah, I watched the first couple of episodes of the Stormcast, and I stopped.
My point is just why call it a podcast if you don't do that?
It's like a web series or something. There are enough people making loads of money on YouTube just to call it like a.
Although this looks really interesting because I guess they have, they're saying they'll get people in from the design studio, and they have the thing. You can be as good as you are if you're doing it like us, but they just have access, and that just trumps pretty much everything.
Yeah, they can talk to big authors, big designers whenever they want.
Yeah, I think they had. I saw the trailer. They had Jarvis on stuff.
Nice. That's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, I'll look into it. Now that they have a 40K one, that actually interests me. I'll have a look.
Yeah,
that's cool.
But I think from my perspective, if it's more of a video cast than a podcast, it'll just be more difficult for me to kind of.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do it on on a commute or whatever, right? Yeah. I know what.
But let's see. Yeah, let's applaud another part of their social media
empire.
Strategy, yeah.
Imperium, sorry. Imperium.
Yes.
Anyway, you had also on the list here some Black Library stuff.
So I probably have to give a little bit of background that I sort of fell into their subscription service hole, the Conquest.
What?
Yeah, I've signed up for it, and I'm on issue 10 or so by now. So basically Conquest is a mix of Primaris Space Marines and
we were talking about that on the show. So that's where you got the models for your son, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I thought it was great great way to have a little bit here and a little bit there that we can use for Kill Team and also for K Army. Not to overwhelm anybody with it and so on. So he's more interested in Space Marines. So I thought, okay, the other army that they're going to send out would be the Death Guard. So my sort of secret ambition, not too secret now, but anyway, is to make a Death Guard army as well. Because obviously when you buy the 8th edition starter set, you get, Space Marines and you get the Death Guard. So I thought it was a good sort of combination with that. So obviously Dave was quite lucky there that Hachette, they messed up and sent me several versions of Lieutenant Calcius.
So I have one issue of Conquest. I have issue 5.
Yeah. Oh, so that's the one you were posting on Instagram.
It was, yeah. It's really good. This is essentially exactly what the Lord of the Rings magazine was back when I was a kid. And it's really good. In fact, I'd say, I don't know, I can't exactly remember, but I think it's actually tempering expectations a lot better. So in the kind of painting guides, so the front of the magazine has the character you get in the magazine painted up in an heavy metal style. But then you go through the kind of like lore of like who this guy is. He's this badass lieutenant dude. He's got a power weapon. It explains what power weapons are. Goes through like a battle that happened in the lore, and then gives you like a step-by-step guide for assembling it, which I actually used because I found one of his legs a little bit weird, because he's in the kind of not traditional walking pose.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then it gives you a step-by-step guide for painting it, and it's actually like an achievable paint job for someone.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, in this step we did all the blue, and then we did all the black really.
Yeah, the next step's like heavy metal finish.
And then gold, and then obviously just edge highlights from this point onwards. It sort of stops once you've sort of blocked everything in nicely, and you're like, yeah, that's an achievable thing for a kid to do. When I was like 10 or whatever. I mean, I couldn't hope to paint that neatly, but like it's an achievable goal.
This whole thing completely pisses me off because I can't get it over here. This whole deal, whenever you talk about it, it's so Brexit.
Yeah, we'll see what happens after March. We'll go on for another year, I think, because there's like, I don't know, 50 issues or something like this. So obviously, it's aimed at UK and Ireland. So I'll see what happens when they send it out. It's sent out once a month now. When you start it, it's every 2 weeks, and then after 2 of those, then it's every month that they send out four issues at the time. So that's a bit of background for why I decided to then start reading about the Death Guard, because obviously they're on Black Library side, they're pushing some novels and some stories on that side.
Ah, right. And so that's the tie-in. I was wondering. Yeah.
That's the tie-in. So it was a long tie-in, but normally I wouldn't be that interested in Death Guard per se, but this was like, and also
I always liked them since the Eisenstein book. I always thought that was great. I
liked them. I liked them as a faction. Also because there's the duality in it with the Death Guard obviously spawning Garrow. He's one of the founding members of the Grey Knights. So it's interesting to see that, the stoic nature of that legion, how it sort of transformed into this chaos faction. And this book, Lords of Silence, is written by Chris Raitt, which I have a lot of time for. He's a really, really good author, especially with sort of teasing out the details of a particular chapter or legion.
I always liked him ever since that I got that White Scars book, exactly. and then we talked to him at Black Library, and he's really understated. But he's a very quiet guy, but he seems to me he seems very literary, like he's well read, and he's
I
think
a poet. I think he's as you say, he's there's a lot of facets to Chris Raitt that you will never probably see sort of openly flaunted. But when you read his books,
it comes through, doesn't it? Yeah,
it really does. There's a nuance. The nuances there are just so good.
I loved in the White Scars thing. He had this, so it's about them invading this planet or whatever. It's like a normal 40k story, but then there's this story about this just this guy, Imperial guy, dealing with the bureaucracy, and just can't getting his shit done because of the bureaucracy. And that was such a nice touch. It was really good. Yeah.
So the story here is we're in the immediate aftermath of the scar opening over the galaxy. The story starts where this warband of the Death Guards, called the Lords of Silence, they find themselves sort of adrift after the scar opened. It's not entirely explained in the beginning why they've sort of been cast adrift. That'll be explained later in the book. But you're sort of introduced to the warband. There's a guy called Vaux, which is the leader of the band. He's a siege master, which would approximately be a fleet master in a loyalist chapter. So a person who has dealt with large amounts of ships and material men before that. So he's a pretty important guy. But obviously, at this point, when we're in the 40k sort of era, he's been in the eye of terror for many thousands of years on the plague planet, sort of, you know, festering away there and plotting and whatever. So obviously, he's changed over that time. So we're getting introduced to sort of his close circle of lieutenants. And as we were talking about Chris Wraith's style of just sort of really getting into the nuance of, okay, this is the leader, and he is the guy that sort of, he, you know, tying in with Nurgle as the god, where, you know, it's Papa Nurgle. He's all encompassing and sort of a very warm but still chaotic god, you know, that he wants the universe to be turned into his garden of pestilent delights, but he sort of cares in a way about people around him, you know, in that specific Nurgle way of, you know, going like, here's some pestilence, you need to come into Papa Nurgle's embrace, and then it'll all be good, you know, that kind of thing. So
think of that every time I get a cold. I'm like, just take me. Exactly.
Join Papa Nurgle, you know, it'll all be better. So it has that sort of twisted way in their interactions, which in a way you understand as you get into the book, where you kind of go like, okay, these guys are completely fucked up, you know. I mean, this is chaos. They're dribbling the most potent viruses you could think of, but they're still sort of
happy.
You know, they're happy. You know, it's so weird, and it's very interesting. So obviously, at this point in the big timeline, Mortarion is planning to go and basically attack Ultramar and take over Ultramar from his hated brother, who has dared to reappear and mess up everybody's plans. So they are finding themselves a bit away from that, and they kind of run into another Chaos Warband called the Weeping Veil, I think it is, and they're word bearers. And as we know, the different Chaos factions, they don't always sort of go chummy. You know, they're quite sort of watching each other, because obviously they want to feed any kind of resource and souls and material and whatever they can into their gods. So they don't care about it, you know, the other guy's gods. So they kind of establish a bit of a truce, because they're quite close to a place which is called Sabaton. And if you
Sabaton, what?
Not Sabaton, but Sabaton, which is basically the home world of one of the loyalist Space Marine chapters.
Is the leader called Corolus Rex?
No, he's not called Corolus Rex. No. So the White Consuls, obviously, they're they've thrown a lot of resources at trying to get to Cadia to aid the efforts there.
Aren't they one of the Adeptus? What they're White Consuls.
Oh,
you know what I mean? The chapters that are stationed. They were stationed around the. God, what are they called? Anyway, sorry.
I'm sure you're right, because basically they've nearly emptied the planet, right? So these guys appear and go like, oh, there's a nice little snack. So the story sort of centers around that the Lords of Silence and the Weeping Veil, they want to get down to Sabaton.
Yeah, they're sorry. Just very quickly, they're Astartes Praeses. That was it. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're the 20 Space Marine chapters that were stationed around the Eye of Terror. Anyway, yeah.
There you go. Yeah. So obviously it's an opportune time to put your teeth into a loyalist chapter world, and the story sort of centers around, you know, will the Lords of Silence get their way, or will it be the Weeping Veil? So obviously I won't give that away totally, but it sort of feeds into the overall arch of the story of do these guys will they sort of set sail and just go hell for leather to get to Ultramar and help out Mortarion, because it's Mortarion's dream to sort of smash Ultramar, while there's another faction in Death Guard led by Typhus that don't really care about that. They just want to, get closer to Nurgle and kind of convert fully, if you could say.
Fart. Noxious gases.
Fart forever. So there's that kind of there within the warband itself. There these two this fault line between are you more loyal to the Primarch or are you more loyal to the Uber Nurgle champion in Death Guard and so on. And it's all very interesting because you're beginning to see that it's not all very similar. You can have this chaos faction, and they are still actually themselves riven internally with different sort of interfaction warfare. So there's a lot of interesting sort of tidbits there. And then just the way he describes the Nurgle worship and the demons and all that, it's so well done because he never actually writes Nurgle anywhere in the book.
that does sound like Chris Waith.
Yeah, but it's so beautifully done and it's so elegant because it's either the god or the father or something. It's always like another for it, and even like Nurglings, right? The little bloody copies of Nurgle himself running around and causing havoc. He calls them the little lords. Right? And it's just there's so many lovely little ways that he sort of turns it into where you go like, this is the way they think. This is their world. They don't care about all the other chaos factions and whatever they call. These are the nicknames they have or the way they look at them from their perspective, right? It's just really well done. And yeah, I mean, in a way, yes, they attack Sabatine, and there's a lot of action involved with that, and obviously a bit of tension there with the Weeping Whale. But really, like, this book is such a great introduction for me, anyway, into how these guys think and how they talk to each other. And there's also a segment on the Plague Planet where you sort of get to see more about how that works, which is the homeworld of Mortarion and the Eye of Terror. And you go like, okay, I can imagine a planet that's just completely, composted into putrid decay. But of course,
any old transatlantic flight, basically.
Yeah. I mean, you that part you can get, but how does it work? Like, so this warband.
How does the health system work?
Do they have a castle? And yes, they do. And yeah.
Is it like Brexit?
Brexit.
The NHS has collapsed. We're the plague planet.
Oh yeah. But they want to do that everywhere, right? So they want to they want to abolish the NHS anywhere. Yeah, these guys, and
it's happening over here too. I can tell you that much. Yeah.
Yeah. So I really love this book. I hope he writes a sequel to it very soon because I want to read more. I like the characters; they were really well sort of rounded. Of course, they were twisted and evil in their own way, but also maybe not evil sometimes, but if you understand them from their perspective, which is the dangerous part, of course, because sometimes you go like, okay, I kind of, I can see where he's coming from, but it's still twisted and evil, that kind of thing. But that's the mark of a great writer, I think, that you can actually get under the skin of these guys.
So take away from this today's don't abolish the NHS, or it'll be Nurgle.
Yeah,
Nurgle's garden.
Disband the NHS, just sign up to Papa Nurgle, and all shall be good. You will frolic in his garden of delights.
That we crossed like politics and Warhammer. My brain has just pictured Donald Trump as a Nurgling, and I can't get over that. Just imagine a little
orange Nurglings.
No, just imagine a Nurgling that's with the hair. Completely works.
Oh, that is horrendous. Oh,
I'll leave you with that image anyway. Yeah.
So anyway, I think a nice sort of sake or whatever you call it, we can move on to Plague War, which is the next book in the Dark Imperium.
Before you do that, I just found, because I was don't mind, I was googling, but I found a random picture on Reddit, which is a close-up of a Nurgling on a Death Guard mini who is wearing a helmet.
Oh, it's adorable.
And the guy says, I propose we name him Carl the Nurgling. I'll put that in the show notes. He's cute. Great.
Ugh, so disgusting.
Anyway, on to Plague War. You're on a right Nurgle trip, aren't you?
I'm on a right what, sorry?
Nurgle trip.
Well, I mean, obviously, if I really want to make an army of this, which is so not the traditional Mike, like traditional Mike always takes the Bloody Imperium armies, goes really, really sort of cavalier, and is like, yes,
goody two shoes.
Goody two shoes. Then I get absolutely stomped, destroyed, obliterated by all the other armies that are actually, more specialist. And it's gonna stop now. Now I've converted.
No more Mr. Nice Mike.
No more Mr. Nice Mike. Mike is gonna be a putrid heap of Nurgle's best, and decay everyone before me. That's how it's gonna be.
I think that's a good move.
And then I'll lose again. But anyway,
but you'll be happy.
I'll be happy in Papa Nurgle's grasp as I vomit up my lungs for the third time. Yes. So in Plague War, we get the sort of overall storyline driven forward where, as was alluded to in Lord of Silence, Mortarion is hellbent on just getting to Ultramar, getting revenge on Rubute, taking it over and sort of making it into his own little plague garden. While some of his Nurgle confidants and advisors who have the Year of the God itself are kind of going, we think it's a bit risky, but maybe you should sort of look at what Abaddon is doing and try and help him. And then Mortarion goes like, no, I want my plague garden and I want revenge, and who cares about that anyway? And then obviously Typhus, his second in command at one point, is getting closer to sort of getting more favor with Nurgle than Mortarion himself, which is a very interesting scenario. I haven't finished the book yet, Plague War, but basically it all centers on Parmenio, which is one of the worlds in Ultramar where Rubute Guilliman, he knows he needs to go and basically like meet. He knows it's kind of a trap, and Mortarion will be there and so on. But he's going like, I have to go and meet my brother and sort of end this. And then there's a tie-in with the whole sort of faith part where there might or might not be a saint there as well. And this is the part where I'm at in the book now, where I'm not entirely sure if it will be a saint the way this character is described, or if it's something else. And this is what has been alluded in this Plague War book, that there'll be a development of the Imperial faith or the Imperial creed kind of thing, which will also make Rubute Guilliman sort of wonder what's actually going on. So I'm quite interested to see what will happen with that, because in the first book he gets to talk with his father, the Emperor on Terra, and I still like the best line from that book is that he says talking to his father was like talking to a star. That just the sheer sort of psychic blinding force of who he was talking to, but equally as, I think he called it cold or something like that, but just that basically the Emperor has spent 10,000 years being a psychic beacon and barrier to basically to hell, that he at this point he's not human anymore. He's basically this kind of godlike being that operates on a completely different level.
And here I was hoping it was going to be like the Emperor as a text-to-speech device.
Yeah, it's a hello, my son. Yeah, so I think it's quite fascinating that I'm still waiting for that reveal where they do something which is what we've talked about before, about either the Immortals, the Perpetuals, or the what are they called, his sons, or the can't remember now what they're called. But anyway, the ones that are going to resurrect the Emperor, which was back in the early lore. I think there might be something there, but I'm not sure. That's maybe. But there's something about the faith and the way the Emperor is turning into a god that they are going to push that storyline somehow, and I'm really looking forward to getting to it. So, yeah. But yeah, I didn't get to finish it before this podcast, so we'll have to pick it up again.
Well, we'll talk about that just next time.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I have to basically also point people again at that Reddit thread, because it has a very nice discussion of how apparently every Nurgle player is called Carl.
Okay.
It's really good. Anyway, yeah. That I wish you luck with your with your name change and your path to.
But I actually just wanted to put in as well that Terrace is coming to an end.
What?
If you're aware. So basically, there'll be 2 more books: Titan Death and The Buried Dagger.
Right.
So they'll.
So it's only 2. Yeah, they were saying so. The Siege of Terror that is gonna be over, right? But it's only 2 more books.
Yeah. So no, that's the thing. So these 2 books will be the last books in the Horus Heresies sort of sweeping storyline.
Oh, and then they do the news. Yeah.
It was like an 8 book series, which is the Siege of Terror.
Okay, then they do this. Yeah.
Zoom in on that. Yeah.
I think it's 12.
It's 12, something like that.
So.
Yeah.
Because I got excited because I thought there's gonna be that one for every. I don't know. I just was excited by the number 12 for some reason. That it was about the 12th one would be at about 2 and 12 or whatever it was. The Unknown Legions. But it's not, so.
Oh, like that? Yeah, okay. Well, they have said many times that they're never going to say.
Yeah, but every time I see the number 12, I kind of.
Just like, no, they've revealed it. Yeah.
The missing Primarchs, what?
Laurie Golding's gone, they're going to reveal the secret.
Yes. So it is coming to an end, but it'll still.
Not really.
But not really. But that but obviously, yes, it'll be interesting to see how they do that switch from the format that we've known for so long now, and then they're going to go to this sort of last hurrah series. So that'll be interesting. And then, of course, there is the Warhammer Adventures and Warhammer Horror. So we're going to expand let's say, the range of...
What's Warhammer Horror?
Yeah, Warhammer Horror. So basically in March next year, which coincides with Brexit again.
Horror.
Yeah. So basically they're going to release some stories that are darker and more grim than they are even now. What's it called? Warhammer Horror.
Yeah, they're going to make Fab happy.
But that was my question. Isn't all of the stories? Is that all horror?
It's going to be more Fab. It's going to be more.
Yeah. So this is. I see it. In a way, I see it as a counterweight to their Warhammer.
Oh, to the kids' books. Now we're going. Now we're going.
Yeah. So what I'm getting is that they're gonna go. Let's just throw something at the wall here and see what sticks. Right. I mean, if one of them is a success.
Oh God! If they're gonna do this, if they're gonna abolish their stupid, let's not kill innocents and all that. If they're gonna make it really dark, that would be amazing.
Yeah,
that would be good.
So obviously we would have to dive into them and sort of see, okay, what is dark, grim dark? What is horror, grim dark? That'll be interesting to see what their take on that is.
I hope it's going to involve, Slanesh and butt plugs.
No.
Well, I mean, our fear.
See, horror. That's horror, Dave. That's horror.
Dave's horrified.
I just said 2 words, and it was the absolute horror. Slanesh and butt plugs. All you need.
So
this sounds like it's from that competition they did. Like I don't know. It sounds like somebody sent in a horror novel.
I think it hasn't got as much attention, I think, as the Warhammer Adventures part, but it just seems to me like another push for them to expand their range and sort of get different groups of people that were maybe on the fringe before.
Yeah. I'm reading the Warhammer community post, and they're talking about how they did this in the past. So they say, way back in the midst of time, Jack Yeovil, a pen name for world-renowned horror expert and author Kim Newman, wrote the terrifying novel Drachenfels and a series of follow-ups based around the experiences of the vampire Genevieve. And Drachenfels is that place is next to Bonn. It's just not horror to me. It's just, that's where the ring cycle is actually. It's like there's a castle on there. But like in my, it's like this German mythological place, that Wagner did stuff about. But in my mind's eye, it's connected with Bonn in summer and green hills and mountains and the blue river Rhine and just summer. So it's not horrific at all. But I guess if you're English, Drachenfels sounds. This sounds good. This sounds like it's right down my alley. I also like that the logo they came up with, which is basically a skull with an iron halo, is basically it's pretty much the chapter logo I came up with way back when. That I made that ring out of. It's just basically that plus the Blood Angel's wings. But yeah, this looks great. I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah, definitely. I think we need to keep an eye on it because it could be a good what should we call it, like a valve or a vent for the feeling that it was getting a little bit too kiddie.
Yeah, guys, we all need to buy this shit and show them that show these kids. Gotta put more dark in the grim dark.
Yeah. And obviously, we're also getting closer to the end of Gaunt's Ghosts.
It's almost over.
So obviously now things are hotting up. The final sort of battles are being lined up, and Gaunt is. I read. Was it War Master? Did you read War Master as well?
I've not read it yet. No.
No. Okay. Yeah. So in War Master, they're getting to sort of a clinch point in the. In the whole campaign, where both sides are basically pooling their most prestigious, valuable resources into one planet, where they're just having a right old ding dong with the ghosts being there and the elite troops of the chaos side, and even there's a saint there as well fighting it. So that's quite interesting, and obviously it ends with a bit of a cliffhanger, and there'll be probably I'd say two more. So the next one's called the Anarch, which will delve into, I think, finally sort of the mind and workings of the enemy on the other side, and what they're doing to try and win the day. So I think next year will be very interesting. There's a lot of stuff that's coming to an end. Horus Heresy and Gaunt's Ghosts, and then we have the new stuff
and then the Empire with Brexit.
And Brexit might just completely overturn the apple cart, and Games Workshop will plummet and can't sell their goods. And,
no, it'll be the only thing left. They'll run the government.
Yeah, Games Workshop, they'll take over the economy.
They are the economy. We are the economy.
Yeah. So even though I'm near being able to buy all the stuff that's coming out now, both on model side and book side, there's plenty of stuff to keep.
Yeah, I think that's the theme. Just letting go. I have to let go of the idea that I can own all the magic cards in a set. That's just never going to happen.
Let it go.
You have to let it go. You just can't read all the Warhammer stuff or own all the minis just doesn't work either.
Yeah. So there you go. Yeah.
Yep.
Big.
Lots of stuff coming up
there, I hope. And obviously, guys and girls listening, give us a prod on what you want to hear more about, because we can't possibly cover all of it. It's just impossible.
So more Warhammer is not a valid feedback. We need specifics.
Yeah, we need a level beneath, Nicholas. Listeners.
Yes. Launching Angels of Death.
Angels of Death was great, and it suited Games Workshop at the time, right, guys?
Didn't have enough Magic the Gathering.
Well, it didn't have Mike.
See what you did there.
More importantly,
that's true.
That is also true.
Mike is amazing at just reading books. I mean, I'm continuously in awe of your digestion of Black Libraries. Is pretty amazing.
I'm a little butterfly compared to some of those guys. I would actually like to meet the guy who does Track of Words. I think it's his job basically just to read everything that Black Library puts out.
Is that a blog?
It's a blog. He tweets as well. He's just really good.
I've seen that.
In line with
Track of Words.
Track of Words. Yeah.
Okay.
Track of Words.
Book reviews. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. He basically reviews everything. And in line with what we've just said, I can't read everything that he does because he does so much.
If that's his job, that's not a bad job to have.
Yeah. So. He gets interviews with the authors. He does these quickfire interviews and all that. So I really if you want to dive into somebody's sort of opinion on all things Black Library, he's a good place to start. For sure.
I'll put his website in the show notes.
Yeah. And I respect his output. It's amazing what this guy gets done. Not sure how much money he makes of it, but it's he's up to date. He reads all the new stuff. I couldn't possibly do it. So
maybe he's got a daytime job where he can just do that, like at an employment agency or something.
I would love to do this, and even for you, Fab, I'm sure you're thinking now what's gonna be your bread and butter, right? When you're
gonna read all Black Library books.
I'm not sure that's exactly you.
No, I'm gonna read all Magic cards, and then get really angry at the bad ones and rip them up and look at the blue glue. This card's really shit. I hate this card.
You'd probably do quite well on YouTube.
Tilonelli's Knight. What the fuck's that about? 1 red for a 2/2. Actually, that's +1/+1 at the end of turn. That actually that's okay. That passed the vanilla test. I didn't say anything. I'm sorry. Yeah.
You need to find your niche.
I continue looking for it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's going to be the same niche as Carl the Nurgling occupies, but I'm going to find it at some point. We should wrap this up. We've been going for 2.5 hours. People can't complain.
They cannot.
Luckily, we don't have that much feedback because the last episode is not released as we record
this.
That does help. Yeah. That is a trick of podcasting. If you don't want that much feedback.
Just don't release the episodes.
There's been a bit of a temporal distortion here, hasn't there? With the episodes being recorded before one's being released first.
It's the Psychotrix Maleficarum or whatever it's called. Yeah. We've gone back in the warp or whatever. Yeah. But on this episode, we definitely want feedback, so we'll get to that later. But we have a message that actually reached us ages ago that I just forgot. But Uwe. I'm gonna guess he's German.
No way.
I'm gonna guess he's not Uwe Boll. I hope he's not. Otherwise, I'm afraid he's gonna beat me if I say something bad. He says it was great to have Dan back on the show. I really enjoyed that little LO flashback. Keep up the good work. Yes, and we will. and Dan will be back. I've already scheduled him for a show this year. And then
I have to say, like, I really enjoyed the episode where Dan was on as well. Obviously, I didn't understand
a word,
20% of what was going on, but Dan and you are just, like you and Dave, the chemistry is just so great.
He has that radio voice.
Yeah.
He's got. He should be on radio, really.
This is Radio Fab. This is new media, new.
Yeah. Fuck radio. We're gonna burn it all to the ground. This is gonna be the new radio. I'm gonna just wait till I get like an antenna and a transmitter. I'm just gonna blast it out there. We also had a tweet from Richard Marsh, which is great. Although I'm gonna put a link in the show notes because you have to see this. I don't know if it works in audio format, but you might know that Meatloaf song. Meatloaf, the guy with the 18-minute songs. I'd do anything for love. And it's Meatloaf going, I would do anything for love. And then I can't remember how that part of the girl goes, but she says basically, how about you paint all your miniatures before you buy new ones? But I won't do that. It's perfect. So good.
And it's so us.
It's everybody. It's all of us, isn't it? I've got a sealed box of death.
Kill Team.
No death. Kill Team.
Kill Team.
Got a Kill Team. It's still in the plastic. And I was already during this show thinking of buying new stuff. So yeah.
Don't worry, Fab. In 15 days you'll be free.
Yeah, but I won't have any money.
Yeah, but that's fine. You've already bought them. That's the thing. You've already bought them, so there's plenty of entertainment.
True.
So imagine me, right? I've done this thing with the Conquest, right? So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna keep buying stuff, right? I'm just gonna do one monthly payment, and then it'll appear once a month, and I'll get some crap. That's the crap.
No.
Famous last words.
And then last month, right? You can go in, and you can check your subscription, and then you can see, okay, now they're gonna pull the money out, and then it says which issues you're gonna get, and I religiously went in and go like, oh, now it's gonna come. And then I waited 3 weeks. Nothing came. I could see they pulled out the 4 episode or the four issues, and nothing arrived in the mail. I was getting increasingly sort of, I need my fix. I need plastic crack, right? And then finally I called them up and said, listen, it must have gone missing in the post or something.
Right. Brexit. And, you know it is.
And the person was like, yeah, we'll have a look at it and blah, blah. And I was like, okay, this is not really working for me, but okay. And then I wrote them an email as well saying, could you please look into this?
This is Mike, auditor of quality. Your quality has been found wanting.
Exactly. Like the customer service did not understand what I was talking about and so on. So I sent an email. And then, of course, what happens? Like I receive 3 identical batches of the flippin' so basically I got 12 issues of
the price of one.
Bonus crack.
I think I actually only paid for one, and that's why Dave is now the happy owner of Lieutenant Calcius. So I actually have one more spare Lieutenant Calcius sitting.
That's amazing.
So I don't know if you want to do a Christmas giveaway or something like that, but I actually have one more that I can give to a lucky soul somewhere because it's like you can only have one.
Why don't we do if somebody pings you in the Discord, you can kind of sort it out.
So they have to go. This is the secret code word. You have to write
the shibboleth.
Calcius is not Sicarius. Calcius is not Sicarius.
I love how you're doing this. When we did that code word when we were testing if somebody listened to the full episode, that was like confusing people for months. I love that. It's great.
Yeah. The first person to write Calcius is not Sicarius to me in any social media, Discord,
right,
whatever, will get free of charge sent Lieutenant Calcius episode or Conquest issue 5.
That's great.
There you go.
Love it. I had that happen once with Amazon. it's just like stuff kept turning up because they just obviously is like when I was like complained that something didn't arrive. I think it was back in Bonn, and it was just like I think they pushed F5 on the fucking reload button or something, and the thing kept coming like every day. Skatey's like, how many?
The thing is, I think they only do it for people where they go like, okay, this guy's been a customer since 2003. Yeah. He's bought for like thousands of euros.
They've just looked you up. It's like, woo.
Yeah, it's like, okay, this is the first time he's complained. Let's just
whale alert. we need to keep him on the crack. Just ship 5. Ship 5.
Yeah. Just make him happy.
That's good. I love that. Yeah. So that's good. We got another code word at the end of the episode. Dave, do you want to do the boilerplate honors? You do it so well.
I can indeed do that.
I'm too drunk.
If you would like to email us to create an issue in some GitLab thing, you can send us an email to feedback@sixgun.org. Or if you feel like going to a website to do that, you can go to gitlab.com/sixgun/GNR/issues and say, "Hurrah, not enough Warhammer."
Although it's quite hard, as Mike will attest to.
It's non-trivial.
It's confusing. Yes.
You can tweet us collectively at Geek News Radio. You can tweet me individually. I'm at Megaslippers.
What? You're on Twitter?
Yes.
Dave is back. Oh yeah.
So
you can
good.
tweet Fab at.
I'm at Fabsh Foxtrot Alpha Bravo Sierra Hotel.
If you want to get miniatures from Mike, you have to tweet him at
MSTEVNSMJ MJ.
Importantly, you need to join the Discord so you can share memes about Brexit. It's really good. That's discord.sixgun.org, or click a link in the places we post it. And finally, we want to thank Bytemark for paying for our hosting for all these episodes.
From the UK.
Yeah, from the UK.
So
we are Brexit safe.
That'll be over in March. I don't know. No, I want to say I made a lot of Brexit jokes this episode. It's just an easy hot take.
It's really easy.
I'm gonna channel Dave, and I mean this. This is really me, but it's gonna sound like Dave. I think it's gonna be fine.
Whoa. And I've got to urge everyone to be skillful.
Celsius is not Sicarius.